The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's see. Tom, you want to do the roll call since you're going to act our secretary here?
Okay.
Do you have an agenda? Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, run through it for me.
Roll call, just say present. Sherry Aker, not here. Jeffrey Karen.
Present?
Jay Edwards. Here. Thomas Haley here. Ruth Hollenbach.
Present.
Deborah Janik.
Present.
Jennifer Joslin. Not here.
She's running late.
Justin LaCroix, not here. Brendan McNally.
Here.
Jennifer Rushley.
Present.
And Joseph Souza.
Present. Okay, thank you, Tom. We're going to note when Jennifer gets here, we're going to note that. Are these working? Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is public comment. So I'd like to open agenda item number 4. Does anybody have any public comment on any topic on the agenda? Going once, public comment. Going twice. Sold. Okay, so I'm going to close public comment, agenda item number 4, and we'll move on to number 5, which I'll read, which is discussion of and preliminary vote on fire department budget. And specifically, I thank our town administrator, Jan, for an email reminding us that we still have to cover the capital items. I think there are 3 or 4 for the fire department, and so we want to move through those, preferably as expeditiously as we can. So I'll give it to you.
And that's the 3rd page?
Yes. That's correct. The 3rd page of the capital plan. I think you probably have seen it before. I don't know to what extent we have discussed it already. There's one big item on there, which is the rescue truck and the proposal to purchase that outright. Obviously, there is an option to do it on a payment plan as well, but I think there was some interest in doing these purchases this way. The other ones are, relatively speaking, minor items, but any questions you may have, we'll be glad to answer.
Okay. So I'll just start on one side to keep this moving. I'll start with Jennifer.
If I may, I'm sorry.
Sure.
I may have said this before as well, but on the large item, $250,000, in previous years, that would have been $350,000 because we have been purchasing the larger models, and I actually want to give Bruce credit for taking a closer look at that and see if there are options that might work better but also save us some money. So he believes preliminarily that there is in fact a smaller model that is increasingly popular in other communities as well, and he would like to try that out, which is why it's $250,000 rather than $350,000.
Is that accurate? Is it 350 or 450? The predecessor types we bought.
I'm pretty sure it was
Okay,
350.
go ahead.
That's an incredible savings, thank you.
What it is, it's the chassis, the big international. If you know anything about trucks, you know international, the big rigs, if you will. The trend for many years was to use those as the trucks for the rescues. And they worked well. They are certainly expensive to fix when they do go down, and they're running all the time, so you're going to have the maintenance that goes along with them. The trend for the past few years for this area has been to go down to the smaller, like the F450s and the Dodges of the equal size, and that's a savings right there.
Are they also more economical to run? Are they better gas mileage or
I would
they're,
assume so.
Okay.
I'm not a, I'm not a
oh, okay.
expert in that by any means, but I think so, yeah.
The, going down to the Zoll monitor defibrillator, is this a new mechanism or are these, can you
It's
go
a-
over that again, please?
Yep. So what it is, it's a cardiac monitor, if you're not familiar. It's shows us the rhythms that the heart's in for our patients. It's also a defibrillator if they need the, if we need to defibrillate them to get the heart either started again or in a sustainable rhythm. What I'm asking for is a new, I don't know, I think that was your, it's to replace an older model that we have right now.
Okay,
Zoll is one of the best monitors, companies around. The monitor that we have on engine 3, which is licensed as a non-transporting rescue, has reached its life expectancy. There's been some discussion in the past, I know that, yes, you can fix them, no, you can't fix them. I have a letter here from Zoll that says the technology is old enough where they're not gonna, they are having troubles finding parts to service them.
okay. So that's a huge issue. We need to switch over because it's no longer, we're not going to be able to fix it
Correct.
very soon. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
And I think you were questioning whether they were actually accurate as they get older. So we're not even sure if like the EKG is totally accurate.
I think they're fairly accurate, but there has been instances where they're not. Once in a great while, but if you're caring for somebody and you have a certain rhythm, you don't want to give medications that you might give to other rhythms, so it's, yeah.
Like, we want to make sure that it's working correctly.
Right, correct.
Especially because you're now giving more medications at a higher level than we had in the past. So you really have to make sure you are getting an accurate reading.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right, so the rescue trucks, so you have 250,000 for this year, and then 2 other years, 350,000. Are you just want to trial this smaller
Right,
one?
I'm assuming that, I have no doubt that the smaller truck's gonna work. Those numbers have not been adjusted yet.
Okay.
It was 350 right across the.
Okay, so this, all right, so you lowered that one. And the fire hoses, I know we've talked about these a lot over the years, and they should be replaced periodically. So is that $10,000, that doesn't replace all of them, does it?
No.
So we're doing like in piecemeal?
Right.
So they get turned out every couple of years or so?
They should be replaced approximately every 10 years, 10, maybe 12. We do have quite a few old shots, is what we call them, that are on the racks now that have sprung holes and you can't fix them anymore. So that's definitely need that.
Okay. And the cascade system, I don't remember what that was. I don't know if we talked about that on our visit.
That was at Station 3 on Crandall Road. That's the apparatus that we use to fill our Scott bottles. It puts the
Okay,
air into our.
okay. So is $40,000 replaces one of those systems?
To be completely honest with you, I believe so. I haven't looked into a replacement system for that. That right there is from the previous chief,
Okay.
so will have to be looked into.
All right, I think that's all. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks. Could you remind me, as we, looking at the rescue trucks, is we have 3, right? And buying this new one is, what's the life expectancy roughly on what we're planning?
Every 3 to 4 years, we've gone out farther than that, but it seems like, you know, that gets us in trouble. We start to have the repair costs after four, you know, in the 4, 5, 6 year range is
Yep.
when we start really throwing good money after bad is, what, you know, what I like to.
Yeah.
You can certainly use them as a, you know, the one that's about to be retired, use that as the reserve.
That would be number 4 as the reserve.
That would be number 3. We have 2 frontline first run rescues in town.
Okay.
The third one is the backup
Okay.
for when one of the other 2 go down.
Okay. Great. And then do we have a quote on these, or is this
I do.
right? And so we have a lot of round numbers in the capital plan, which I appreciate. Some of them are estimates, but some of them are ones that we know. This is one we know.
Yes.
Great. And then I guess same question on the monitor defibrillator that, and within hundreds, that's fine type of thing.
Yeah. I actually have a quote here for 35, just over 35,000 for the. I talked to the gentleman from Zoll.
So,
It was just before the last meeting that I was at,
Great.
Valentine's Day. He said he could get down to the 35,000.
okay. Right. But it's not like a wild guess, or you know, this is something that you've got. Great.
Oh, absolutely.
Great. And just a real quick one on that. So what we're doing here would be the 40,000 or 35, whatever what comes out, is replacing the one on truck number 3. Did you say, or?
I think what we would probably do is take one of the ones off the rescue.
Uh-huh.
Again, kind of like the same
Yep.
theory for the trucks themselves.
Yep.
Kind of put that one on engine 3 because it's not used quite as much as, you know, the rescues. It's used quite often.
Okay, great. And so this would allow us to have these on how many pieces of equipment?
Actual monitors, the monitors, it would be the 2 rescues.
Okay.
And then the engine.
And then the
Which,
engine.
it's a licensed, non-transporting rescue.
Yep.
So we need a monitor on that
Great.
because of the licensure on the vehicle.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll go last. Just kinda-
How long did the old monitor work, the Zoll monitor? How long did it last?
That's a 2012.
Okay. Having a little trouble with the 3 to 4 years on the rescue truck too. You guys spray them off and everything, and you take care of them, and so,
Spray them off, is that what you said?
yes, with the salt, that type of thing.
Constantly.
I know you said they run all the time. That's what you said also, right? I did find out, this is a little different, okay, but I did find out that all over the country, they are using solar panels on top of rescue trucks now. So you don't have to leave them running. It's actually true, yeah. So I just wanted to mention it. We may not be able to do it this year, but as we go forward, we can maybe look at that. Free power, you know, so.
You mentioned that on
For the drugs.
for the station tours.
Oh, I did, okay,
You
yeah.
did.
Okay.
And I looked a little bit on, you asked me to look into it, so that's what I did.
I got on your case, yeah, okay.
I found 2 departments out. One was, I think, in the Midwest, and one was out
Further.
west. And it was, what I found was just a little bit about it, not really the success of it, or
Right. Yeah,
I'm sure there's more information out there, I just haven't
yeah.
found
Okay.
it yet.
Thank you. I think I'm all set, thanks.
Okay, I think you mentioned this when we toured, that the defibrillator you're looking for, there doesn't appear to be any grants or any cute ways to save money on that. Is that correct? You did sort of looked,
I do not know of any grants to,
right? Right. Okay, and the defibrillator model that you showed us, we have 3 of those? exact models, is that correct?
I don't remember showing you one, but yeah, they're all basically the same.
Yeah.
They're all
right.
Zolls.
They're all old, and we probably could expect,
The one on the engine, the one that needs replacing, obviously is the oldest one.
okay, all right,
I don't know what the
I misunderstood.
the
Okay,
other two are, yeah.
thank you.
So I understand what the cascade systems are. Do we have one in each station?
We have one in East Tiverton. We do have one up in North Tiverton. It's not used quite as much. The one in East Tiverton is the go-to if we need to top off a bottle. Up at Station 2 up in North Tiverton, we can use that one.
And I know this it's come up a couple of times, so these things really need to be upgraded and maybe outright replaced. All right. And of course, I mentioned it before, we gotta do something about air packs, so we don't get in that mess again. I guess that's it. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. The rescues you want to purchase, other than size, they're in every way as capable as the ones you have now.
The actual box in the back is the exact same size as what they put on the bigger chassis. So, and that's where we do our work with those, you know?
Yeah, right.
And as far as the drivetrains and the chassis and suspension and, absolutely,
Okay, good.
absolutely.
Thank you.
I remember when we started first talking about going with the heavy chassis, because we're gonna get so many more miles out of them. But it never changed that, well, we still need a new one every 3 years, so I'm glad we're finally getting a little bit realistic on what we're buying. Because the ambulance you had for Little Compton seemed fine for what we needed. So I'm assuming that's pretty much the size, maybe a little bit bigger than that with a lift gate.
It's a little bit bigger
Yeah.
than that one.
Yeah, that's all I had.
I have I'll ask my one question. So, no, actually, it's not a question, it's just a comment, I guess, more than anything at this point. I had communicated earlier in the week with the treasurer. I was actually driving south from New Hampshire when I spoke with her, and I asked if she could take a look at a comparison between cost to buy outright versus cost to finance. So I haven't heard anything back at this point, but I've also learned that my email's been bouncing. I think a wrong email address got entered on a thread, and maybe people are using it now. So I just want to take a look at that. I know there's a lot of momentum to buy outright, but we need to be smart, and we need to look at, which one makes more sense. So, Jan?
So on that, there may be a little bit light, possibly a little shine some light by looking at the monthly reports, because there still is a rescue truck in the non-recurring capital account that is on a payment plan. And that is approximately $60,000 per year, I believe.
Yep, okay, and that's probably a 350,000 one, not a
Probably.
250, because we used to buy the more expensive ones. Thank you, Jan.
Yeah.
Yep. And we don't know how many years is that plan, does it say?
I think it was a 5-year plan, if I'm not mistaken.
That doesn't work.
Payment 3 for 5. 3 out of 5.
That doesn't work then. 6 times 5 is 300.
Unless there was a down
Down-
payment.
There might have been, had to have been down payment, yeah. Okay, anyway, I just want everyone to know that I did request that, and, so, a couple days ago, so we'll take a look at that. And I specifically, I think, yes, we have to assume a discount rate and whatnot, so we'll see and what we can pull together there. That was my only comment on that. And, oh, hi, welcome. Yeah, I noted you came in at 7:20, that's great. Sorry, I was late. No problem. So we were just talking about the the three items in the fire capital, and they are the rescue truck, fire hose, and various appliances, and the Zoll monitor defibrillator. And we're asking questions of our acting chief. Do you have any? Okay. So I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming back. Keep it moving here. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks for all the rescuing.
So, the next item I think will be really, really quick. I think, Jan, this one's yours too, isn't it, I think? Would this be your item, or?
School
Yeah.
offset. Offset, officer.
Number 6, I'll read it so the camera can catch it. Number 6, discussion of and preliminary vote on SRO, which is school share offset, school resource officer hyphen school share offset. So this should be pretty simple. It's a number. We really just need to be verified, I think, right?
If only I knew as much as I should.
Oh.
Is it with fire and police?
It is something that is being paid for out of,
The docket, page 12. It's account number 3330.
Thank
It's
you.
a negative,
I think it's twice in the budget usually as an expense and then also as something that we get reimbursed for.
Right.
So it's not a net expense.
that's correct. That's how I understood it.
So what I understand, what I see here is 61, what I see in your budget is 61,073. And last year, it looks like it was the exact same number, which is a little suspect. And if it is a net zero thing, then I guess there's not too much concern, but obviously, I guess I want to ask the question then to Jan. Did you ever, when you made the budget, did you run that to ground, or did you just drag that one over for now as a placeholder, or do you know?
No, well, this is done because it falls under the police
Okay.
department.
Yeah,
And so I worked with the chief on this, and, he verified that we're still doing this. There's actually, I think, consideration of coming up with additional money or getting additional grant money for an additional position, but that requires a whole lot of further conversation, I think. But there was some discussion of, getting additional assistance in that regard. But for now, it's just this one.
so in your mind, that's a good number then, the 61,073? Okay, that was it.
It's two different numbers, so just so in the budget for the police.
See, you know much better than I do.
Correct.
She's school.
The school.
Go ahead, Brendan.
Yeah, I think
But that's
that,
the town part of it, yeah, okay.
I think that I don't know why they're different, but when we look at the bottom of the docket, the 61,063 is a credit to the town. So it is
073, yeah,
provided by, 073, thanks, by the school. But then when you look in the police department, they have one special line item in there.
Page 7,
Yep, thank you. And
under salaries.
Yep, the request, it's about a third of the way down, is 54,748.
Okay, I stand corrected, or I said corrected.
So I don't know whether
Is that
that's a
the-
timing issue in terms of one year versus another, or,
And is that the total salary, or is that the police department, because he works year-round?
That's
and schools
correct.
aren't open, so
I
there's a
don't think
portion
it
that
is.
the police department pays, and there's a portion that the school department pays. So is that combined, or is that?
I think it may well be combined.
Well, and it equals benefits too, because it's not.
Right,
straight
and,
salary.
because you're right, that part of the year, and he also actually counts towards the minimum staffing, so.
that may be the difference
Ah.
too.
And in the summer, yeah,
Right,
because
so
in the summertime,
including
he's a
the
full
benefits.
officer.
Right.
For the police department, but the school department, during the school year, he's there at the school.
Right.
So that's his main function.
Correct.
Okay, so when these salary lines, these are just salaries, then their benefits are lumped in with that item called health insurance somewhere else, and there's a lot, that's over here. Obviously, that all lumps together as a cost, and the school department will reimburse the total, which is 2 or 3 items that sum up. Would that be a fair statement?
It would be.
Okay, so that's, I think, what's going on, Brendan, yeah. Okay, I don't want to beat a horse. I won't say a dead horse, but I don't want to beat it, so.
But that,
I just wanna make
that
sure we
also
touch base on
doesn't,
that. What's
that
that?
doesn't account for the new contract, the new police
Yeah.
contract. This does not account for that. Right, because this is January,
Right.
so their contract wasn't determined
That's
at that
correct. It's
point,
not-
so.
yeah.
So that'll change.
So
Well, the
it'll
salary account will change.
change, right?
Jeffrey, can I just?
Yep.
What Jan said is true about the grants, but it has to be a new school resource officer. If you want any money in your town to come from the state, it can't be one we already have, which isn't really fair, because we had it all these years. But if we want a new one, there are grants available, okay?
You mean like an additional one, or just a new person?
No, an additional one. If we wanted to have two, the state would pay, but they won't pay for the one we have already, which we fought, because that's not really fair. Because we're paid for him all those years, the town and the school, remember? We shared costs after the grant ran out. First it was a grant position, then it ran out, then we all got together and we shared the cost, because we thought it was important.
Okay. Okay, that does raise a point. I just ask a question. I'll use this as the example, though, Jan. So the police contract, is that settled now? Is it signed, or
Yes,
will be
it-
signed shortly?
It has been ratified by both the membership of the union and by the town council.
Okay, so when this body, the budget committee, gets something from you in a week or two or three or whatever it is it going to have new numbers for this then?
We can do that. I can work with the treasurer to, get those numbers in there.
Well, would that make sense?
Sure.
Had you intended to do that, or I would probably?
Yeah, well, it was more hoped, because at the time I didn't know what to expect. I'm just very glad that we were able to finish that one, and if we're lucky, we'll finish the fire one.
Right,
Sure.
We'll have probably be updates too in terms of what the town council wants to do in terms of like the contingency amount, because the game plan had been, we don't know what we're gonna have to do, right? And so the amounts that we're looking at here in contingency could go down.
Correct.
And the line items and salaries for.
And we would try to do that at the same time.
Right.
Okay,
Unless you have other ideas for the contingency.
sorry about that. Okay, great, thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is number 7, discussion and preliminary vote on library services budget. I'm going to flip to the budget here. And just for the commission, there's a, what I'm looking at the bottom of page 11. I don't know if this is updated information, somehow I think it's not, but that's where it's sat. It does have what was approved last year. It does have that.
Thank you.
We do introductions. Do we need introductions, or do you? I don't know you, so I will let you introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you. My name is Catherine Damiani, and I'm the new library director who came on board in September 2018.
Ah, okay. Nice to meet you. And Carol.
I'm Carol Herman. I'm currently the vice chair of the trustees.
Okay, great. And so, do you know? I know Carol probably knows everyone here, but perhaps do you know everyone here, Carol?
I believe so.
Okay, but you don't, I'm sure.
I
So.
met many of you on Saturday.
Okay. Okay. I'm Jeff Karen. Okay. Nice to meet you.
I'm Brendan McNally.
Okay. Any?
Jay Edwards.
Tom Haley.
Ruth Hollenbach.
Okay, so we did it again, that's fine, great. Awesome, okay, so, I can proceed in different ways. It looks like you just handed us a presentation. Do you want to make a presentation? Is that the best way to talk us through this?
We certainly can. I had actually emailed it, so I know many of you might have it already. So I can certainly go through that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So thank you all for, yes. So thank you all for visiting on Saturday. It was great to take you through the library, tell everyone about the services that we provide to the town of Tiverton. And Tiverton Public Library serves a population of 15,870, and to date has 5,937 Tiverton residents registered for a library card. This is 37% of the town. And we also have an additional 785 users who pay a local use or full access use fee. So in fiscal year 18, we had over 95,000 visitors and almost 80,000 physical collection items circulated, and 637 programs. We have a very, very incredible staff who are dedicated to what they do, providing programs, purchasing materials, and also making sure that any questions that come through our library are answered. Some of our goals for fiscal year 20 include our long-range plan, which outlines all of those goals, but we would like to reopen on Tuesday mornings, expand our adult collection, and continue to create programs for all ages that best serve this population. As of December 2018, we've made significant progress on many of these items, include offering more weekend programs for all ages. We also removed pre-registration requirements from story times, branded library publications with our logo and colors, and we even provided training for staff on how to administer Narcan and assist patrons who have special needs through grants and volunteer time. Okay, so page 3, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background on our mission statement and vision statement. Page 4, I wanted to give you some statistics snapshots of fiscal year 18 that include our library visits, and this is a fact that is very incredible to this library. 95,340 visitors throughout the year, and we are open 301 days a year. Our circulation includes physical items, which are books, movies, audiobooks, and that was what was checked out in fiscal year 18 by our patrons. E-zone circulation has been an incredible surge over the past couple of months even. We're actually on track to exceed last year's statistics by 28%. And so we're very willing to purchase any items as far as e-zone goes, as well as print items. We want to make sure that all of our patrons, in whatever format they prefer, are served. We have public access computers, and that is actually one of the requirements that is put forward by the state, that we have public access computers. We do have to maintain those public access computers through our budget, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Those statistics with the 14,169 sessions are averaged about 45 minutes per session is what we're averaging. Our wireless internet sessions account for computer, tablet, smartphone, and gaming console uses in the library. So as soon as somebody walks in, connects to our Wi-Fi, we count that statistic. And a grant through our library consortium actually provided us with upgraded routers to increase the range of our access points. So that was very important to ensure that everyone who walked through our doors was able to have equal access. Continuing down, we have programs which numbered 637, and they're planned by our children's, young adult, and adult departments. Community events are planned by all departments and include activities for all ages. So examples of that would have been the Day of the Dead programming that occurred in the beginning of November, or the block party event that we had in the summer. And last but not least, program attendees. This includes lectures, story times, one-on-one technology help, community events for all ages, and all other publicized library events. And we had 7,859 participants last fiscal year. Moving on to page 5, I just wanted to give you all a visual of our staff here and how our organization flows. We have myself as library director, and then we have our librarians, and we have 3.5 current public services librarians who have their MLIS degrees, and we have 2 who are classified as librarians and have the experience that backs up their credentials for their positions, which are children's and patron services / branch librarian. As you see, we do have a vacant space, and so that has accounted for this year in a bit of savings that we're able to reallocate to other needs in the library. Our new adult services librarian will arrive on March 4th, which is just next week. We have several library assistants, and they actually primarily work on our public service desks. So those will be the majority of the people you will see as those friendly faces at our information desk, our children's room desk, our young adult room desk, and also if you drive through or call the library, then they will also be there. So we have 4 service points that we staff throughout the library. We have pages who are Tiverton students, and they help keep our library in proper working order as far as our collection goes. You'll see them shelving books, ensuring that things are put back in the right spot, and also some of them are on-call staff, so we think that is a wonderful thing that our high school students have gone on to become workers at our information desk. On page 6, I wanted to give you a breakdown of our library staff's FTE information. And so what I did here is I gave you each position with the hours per week that they work, and then their time allocation. So for myself in administration, we also have support staff. Those service desk areas are, again, our information desk, our young adult room, our children's room, and the back office area where all checking in is done of library materials, as well as drive-through and phone services are answered. And then we also have a program/duties section. So this describes anything as far as purchasing library materials, planning programs, executing programs. And I've given you on page 7 an explanation of that as well. It also includes cataloging any new items that come in. Moving on to page 7, we just wanted to highlight a few points about the FTE standards, and that minimum standards are 1 FTE staff, excluding custodians, security staff, and pages for each 3,000 of the population. And we would like to also mention that fully staffing all service areas requires 212 hours of staff time per week. So if you look back to page 6, underneath the service areas total, that's 195.5. So at some times, you will not see a staff member in our children's or young adult rooms because we are not actually fully staffed to the capacity that the library needs. Program duties include that collection, development, cataloging, and are essential to library services as well. And last but not least, on page 7, we have some financial information that we wanted to make sure you had as well. This is from this, so grant and aid, or GIA, is our funds given to us from the state of Rhode Island, and they total the percentage of the town allocation. Last year, it was just under 23%, but this year, as per the governor's budget, it is going to be right around the 21% range. So despite libraries having increased budgets around the state, that same pool of money that all those libraries are pulling from is the same pool. And so other libraries will be getting more if their budgets have increased. So that's why the percentage has gone down. And our Bank Newport account totals $64,108.40. Of this amount, just under $18,000 is restricted for programs. So this is the Friends of the Library donation and the John Fitzgerald Memorial Fund. And one thing that we do want to point out is that our Friends of the Library generously raise money every year and donate to our programs. So our programming is fully funded by our Friends of the Library. And the John Fitzgerald Memorial Fund, we actually do have a history lecture coming up in March to honor his legacy at the library. The remaining $46,138.42 is from fines, fees, and donations. So these funds are used for things like building maintenance, carpet cleaning, door repairs, septic system maintenance, and most recently repairs to storage area shelving, which collapsed due to improper installation. And we're very, very lucky that no one was injured when this happened, but there was a cost to us through the insurance company deductible. So for instances like this, that's when we need those funds. And not all of our building maintenance, carpet cleaning, door repairs, or septic system maintenance is covered in our maintenance budget currently. This also accounts for any unanticipated health increases. So if someone currently has an individual health plan and then decides to accept a family health plan, then we also have to account for those as well. Pages 8 and 9 are our budget document. And so you'll see our fiscal year 19 statistics and funds, and then fiscal year 20 towards the right side of the page. And then the second page behind that is going to be the explanation for each line. Would you like me to run through this, or would you like to ask questions about each line?
I think you could, we're moving quite nicely, so I think you could run through it. You'll
Sure.
probably more efficiently save a lot of questions if you do. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So one of the things that we've noticed over the past year is that our utility costs have gone up, and we feel that's something that goes with a sign of the times and is almost unpreventable in our case. So we've decided to allocate additional funds to electricity, heat, and water over the next year. So flipping to the second page with explanations, we have a 4.5% increase for electricity, and we have two providers. One is National Grid, the other is Direct Energy, and they do post increases every year. So we are waiting to see how that influences our budget, and we felt 4.5% was the best amount for us to allocate to that line because we did not allocate additional funds last year. And we've even had to do a line item transfer this year to that line to ensure that it is funded. The same goes for heat. We're currently at $189.9 per gallon, and we use approximately 12,000 gallons each year. So we have based our cost at $2.2042 per gallon. And that is based on past increases. We typically see about a 10 to 20 cent increase, and we do have to negotiate that with our fuel provider.
And that's propane.
Yes,
by the way.
it is propane.
You heat with propane?
We do. Mhm. The water line, we did increase to $100 because we're accounting for additional building use and visitors as seen in our usage statistics. So for lack of a better term, people use more water if they're in the building, and we have seen that line going up and are currently anticipating very, very close to what we've allocated for this year. Communications is our telephone line. So that includes our contract with Rhode Island Telephone, and that is something that we're always looking at other vendors and providers to see how we can get the best bang for our buck and ensure that we're really making strides in cost effectiveness at the library. Rhode Island Telephone has given us a good number for that contract as related to others. So our communications line, we did not decide to increase this year. Maintenance is something that we increased a tiny bit, $500 worth. And we have had increased issues coming up with the building, and that's what this line covers. Anything from roof leaks, which are fortunately covered under our warranty right now, to our shelving issue, to our doors sticking due to the shifting of the building. So we want to make sure that we're taking very good care of this building for years to come, and this would help us do that. Staff development and travel includes mileage for staff to state and consortium meetings. And if funds allow any sort of professional development experience, but in the past, this line has been incredibly low for the needs of our staff attending any meetings. We've also tried to move towards meetings online. Our consortium does provide those options as well, so our staff can dial in to the meeting and be able to participate with other state library staff as well. Our office, library, and computer supplies is seeing no increase. We feel that we're accurately portraying this line here and what we use this on. This is for things like toilet paper. We do not use paper towels to the extent that anybody thinks we may. We actually have hand dryers, and we like to best use any renewable resources like cloth towels. So things like copy paper for our patron printing machines all falls into office, library, computer supplies, but I can always give you an additional breakdown of that line if you'd like. Our consortium and network fees are actually set by our consortium, and so they were actually lower last year than what was appointed for that line. So that was $28,997, and those consortium fees are just under $1,000 more for this year. So that's why it's showing minus 1.7% there. Our materials, we're allocating no increase. We would like to keep that at $35,000. We feel like for our newspapers, our magazines, any audiobooks, CDs, books, and across all departments, that has been a good number for us. We also allocate a certain amount of that to our E-zone, and so we put that back towards the consortium so that those materials will benefit our patrons. Service contracts is a very large line for us, and we are asking for an increase in that line. We have seen a new a pump inspection. That is something new that came to us that we actually recently just had pump issues today. So again, with maintenance, this is really something that we want to keep on top of for maintaining our building, and so hence the increase in this line. This is also due to our providers for HVAC having an increase. We wanted to add carpet and upholstery cleaning into this line instead of just paying for it at will when needed, because we want to make sure that the library is clean, is looking nice for everyone who uses it, and also any sort of spills or issues that we have on our floors, we want to make sure those are taken care of because we are seeing some ants in the building. So again, that's going to require additional maintenance as far as an exterminator goes. Septic maintenance is also included. We're now on a rotating schedule so that we have our septic system serviced and that we're not having issues with that. This also includes our self-checkout machines, sprinkler inspections, fire extinguisher inspections, and also messenger security services. Going down, we do have a new line, and this is technology maintenance and replacement. So as I mentioned before, it's a state requirement that we have public access computers, and so we're finding that, like all technology does, it has a lifespan that we end up needing to replace. So we want to make sure that we're replacing a little bit each year so that we're not in a situation where we have to replace 10 to 15 machines all at the same time. Our public access computers are one of the most used pieces of library service that we have, and so we would like to make sure that we're giving the best option to our patrons who do use those services, whether it be for printing, scanning, emailing, any sort of business that they need to do in the library. Any questions on operating expenses?
Have one. I know you're planning to open up on Tuesdays earlier than this budget, but does all of these increases, the electric and all of the utilities, does that take that into account, those
Yes, it
extra
does.
hours?
Mhm.
Okay,
It
thank you.
does. You're welcome.
I guess we could do I'm wondering if we should go through the whole thing
Sure.
and then do questions, or, what's that, go to the end?
Okay.
Well, we.
Just operating expenses.
Page 8, we're just in the middle there.
I'm I'm at 9 there.
We're at subtotal programs.
What's that?
Subtotal programs.
Yeah.
Middle of page 8.
Why don't we talk through, why don't we finish the page, if that's okay?
Sure.
And then we'll go, do our round robin thing we do.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
That's
So the next line is going to be our programs and friends donations. So this is restricted funds. As I mentioned, our Friends of the Tiverton Public Library raise money every year through various ways of doing that, and they donate to our programs. So this calendar year, they actually donate by calendar year, is $10,550. So that is why you will see that on our budget now. We decided to include this as a new line just so we were showing that we do spend money on programs and that we would like everyone to know where it does come from, because that is a large part of a service that we provide. Okay, moving down to salaries. Our salaries actually are lower than previously allocated. This is actually due to some senior staff members retiring, and we also, so with that included, it has to do with those retirement and health benefits. So we decrease the salaries line, and you'll also see we have a new line for retirement. That was recommended by the town treasurer so that we can incorporate all retirement costs into our budget. So we moved salaries to retirement. FICA is a set rate at 7.65% of the salary line. And then health benefits, we've historically seen 7.5 to 10%, and our town treasurer suggested 8%. So we'll know more once we hire our new librarian in March 2019. We have planned that she will be accepting a family plan, but we do not feel it is our place to ask that until she is actually an employee of the town. And going down to the revenues area, you'll see our grant and aid. And again, as I mentioned, that percentage will be lower. So this line is a direct number from the Office of Library and Information Services at $122,228. So it is actually fell 0.3%. Our town appropriation, we're requesting $576,500, so that's an increase of 2%, up from $565,000, which has been the rate for the past 2 years. Our fines and fees, you'll notice this is significantly lower, and one of the reasons that we are anticipating lower fines is that we've actually seen this is back in November, our consortium instituted an auto renewal policy, and so this actually benefits patrons in a very big way, and that items that are checked out that do not have anybody waiting for them will actually renew for up to 2 times. So someone could actually have an item for up to 9 weeks, which is great for them and would cut down on any sort of fine dissatisfaction that they have with the library. So we see this as a benefit to our patrons that they are able to have items for longer. And so that's why we have shown that decrease there. Currently, we net about $800 per month for fines and fees. And last but not least are our grants. And this was a legislative grant that we had in the last year, and we will again be applying for that. And that is from Senator Felag. So. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'd just like to say right off the bat, I'd just like to thank you for a very concise and thorough presentation. That was really, really good.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you. and an increased number that is moderate. Thank you. So, do you have any, we'll start with Joe over here this time, sorry. Start with Joe.
Well, I don't have a question, I have something I want to say about the building over there.
Okay.
Microphone.
Microphone, Joe.
So the day we took the tour, I walked around outside. I counted a dozen places, looking up at trim, half-inch gaps where water can get into the siding of that building and destroy it over the years. It's a brand-new building. So I asked to have something be put in this budget to take care of that. Probably looking at $3,000 to $5,000 worth of repairs on the outside of that building. And I'm looking at a line item for $400. So my question is, now I remember with the old library, Bobby Martin, the building maintenance guy, went over there and worked on it sometimes they hired people. So it's always been a mixed bag. But I'm wondering who's really responsible. And I'd really like to see if we can get a legal opinion to find out who's really responsible for taking care of that building and doing the maintenance on the exterior of that building. Because, quite frankly, I don't think, same with the schools. I don't think that the school committee and I don't think that the library committee should be responsible for the maintenance of those buildings. I'll bring you Ranger School. You saw that. I know that's not on this budget, but you saw the holes in the wall in the brand-new school at Ranger. And now I'm seeing deterioration on a brand-new building. And, you know, other things are breaking in there. And it goes back to the construction, the way it was constructed, and we talked about that. I mean, it was ridiculous the way that building was constructed and the time frame they built it in. That's why we're having the type of problems we are. So it's going to need some repairs on the outside. It's a lot of wood out there that's exposed to the weather. So I'm hoping that the Budget Committee, I don't know if we need a vote of the Budget Committee or I can just personally request it, but I'd like something, either the solicitor or somebody who can tell us who's responsible for the maintenance on that building. If it's the town itself, then maybe we should put something in the capital budget. I mean, it's like maybe $3,000 to $5,000 to go up there now, caulk it and paint it. But 10 years from now, we're gonna have to float a bond to replace the siding. That's what's gonna happen.
Is it wood or is it like AZEK? Is it
It's a
shrunken wood?
combination.
Shrunken wood?
There's a lot of wood up, there's a lot of wood paneling up there, which is not great. It's basically plywood. And you know what happens to plywood when moisture gets in it. It stocks in the cracks and it works its way in. You start to see it puff out and then the whole panel gets ruined. And in driving rains, I know for a fact water's getting into that stuff. So I've seen enough of it in my life to know that if we don't do something this summer, we're going to lose that structure in a few years. I mean, it's going to be, float a bond to repair the exterior.
We don't want that.
No, it won't even be paid for yet.
Well, I think that's a really good point, Joe. I think that, I guess what I could do is take it as an action, just as the chair, to inquire. I could inquire about that as the chair and report back next week, potentially, or sooner, about, on what I learn, and go from there. And if I learn, whatever I learn, I can try to also push further. If I learn that it's something that we want in capital, then I can push there, whatever I can learn. If I learn that in 2 days, then I can push there or whatever, so. I don't think we need a vote necessarily. I think I can just inquire, and then we can kind of go from there.
Sounds great.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Joe. Yeah, no, because, I totally raise this point, and a lot of times, too, everyone's seen it. Like, I can only speak for myself, but new wood, it shrinks. Everyone's seen, even in a house, right? Molding, the first few years of a new house, the molding, and even inside. So I totally can see what you're saying, yeah. So, thanks, Joe. Jay?
Okay. The library has its own standalone health plans. You're not part of the town's.
We do have it through the town, but we pay for it out of our budget.
Oh, so you're part of the town's, but then you pay for it.
Yes, that's
All
correct.
right, well, so that probably makes it somewhat cheaper. All right, then we'll get something that's near and dear to my heart. Who sets your fees for library cards?
So that is set by our consortium, and they're known as Ocean State Libraries. All public libraries are part of this consortium. So the fees are actually set by them every year. It's $25 for a local use only card and $155 per full access card.
Okay, so the reason I ask that is for two things. If you take a residential household, irregardless of how many library cards a Tiverton resident has, we pay a bit more than that. Now I'll tell you a story. For the first time this year, I got a notice by email that I had to renew my card or else. And I thought, this is great. So my wife and I looked it up and saw the documents we needed to prove residence and went to the library. I went to the desk. I did not give them a library card. I just told them who I was. And here's what happened. They looked at me, told me my address, and that was it. I didn't have to prove who I was. I didn't have to prove I was a state resident or a town resident. And I got I was renewed. And I don't like that. To me, if you're going to have a policy, you should enforce it. You should require a resident of the state or the town to prove they're a resident. To me, that's chasing every bit of revenue you guys can get. And if you're letting, I'll use a bad word, the parasites from Fall River and from Massachusetts to come in and use our library at a less fee than I have to pay, I'm not happy. So I would request that you educate your staff that they need to ID people to get a library card, not just look at them. Because, I mean, my son is still registered to vote in this town. He hadn't lived here for years. Technically, he could go and get a library card.
Thank you. And I, as far as an administrator goes, do require all my staff to follow the Ocean State Library's policy that states we should be checking ID for every single person that does come into the library looking to do that. So I will ensure that they are doing that.
Okay.
They may know who you are.
Hmm?
You may be recognized, so they already knew. I've seen you on. I've seen
You're
you
famous.
No, because
You're on TV every week.
So they weren't
No,
going to
no,
trouble you. Who are
they
you
didn't
again?
recognize me because I don't go there that often anymore because,
They see you on TV.
They see you on
every week.
TV. You're on the budget committee.
nice try, Jen, nice try. And I didn't even buy them off. No, but I mean, you understand what I'm saying. You know, we should not allow that to happen.
I agree. And that is why OSL policy does exist. And so I expect the fullest fulfillment of that by our staff. So I will definitely ensure that that is happening.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much for a thorough job. I understand your increases and it seems pretty fair. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I just have to say that I'm pretty upset that this wonderful new library was promised and it wasn't built properly, really. It really wasn't. I mean, there's not even solar panels, which is something that could be utilized for newer buildings. I was, pretty upset when Joe saw the cracks in the building. And so somebody built a building and now we have to pay for all the repairs. That's basically what we're saying. And if it was built better, there would be fewer repairs, period. So I'm just saying that, not too impressed with the quality of the building. And who was in charge of that building, the building committee, the library building committee? Who was in charge of the building of the library? Can you tell me?
Yes, I believe it was. That was before my time.
Yeah, I
but-
know.
yeah.
I know that. I know that.
I understand.
And so I wasn't really speaking to you. I'm
Yes.
saying this in a general way.
I understand that it was a
yeah.
building committee at the time.
And when did you go to the library? Was that before her time too, or not? Was that
That was January.
Okay. But other than that, so other than that, it was a very good presentation, and thank you very much.
You're welcome.
There was one thing that on the number of people using the library that we've always kind of joked about a little bit is, a person can go in and out several times in one day. So when you count them, I'm not sure how you're counting people, but, just be careful when you give us these exact numbers.
Absolutely.
Sort of thing. That's, go ahead. if you want
And
to say
also, just to note, we are looking at a grant for a new people counter, for lack of a better term. And this device that we have now is a laser. And so, yes, people could definitely be counted more than once per day. But this new people counter is actually going to give us live statistics. So if you were to come into the library, ask me how many people came in the last hour, we would be able to pull up those statistics. And that would be a grant through our consortium. So it would be at no cost to us.
Oh, great news. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's all I had.
I had a question that, and I'm looking for where it was. There was somewhere there was right here. Have an additional, I'm on page 2, currently have an additional 785 users who pay a local use or full access fee. I'm just more curious than anything. So what is a local, what does that mean? Like they're from a different town, or no? Different town in Rhode Island, you get the reciprocal arrangement.
Correct.
So it wouldn't be that. What would that be?
So the local use fee is for those who live out of state who would like to use just our library. So it is just the Tiverton Public Library that they wish to use, and that's a $25 fee that they pay. And we have 780 of those users. And so the 5 users who pay that full access fee are also from out of state who wish to use the entire Ocean State Library's network.
Okay. So there's 5 people who wish to do that, and there's 785.
780.
80 who
Yes.
pay for it. So for example, if somebody lived right over the line in Westport, that would be prime example. for
Exactly.
example. Okay. Okay. I just wondered what that was, and it's $25?
It is. And some of these users, we do need to mention that they could have an expired card, so they may not have been in to pay that fee. So it's not that everybody has to come in on January 1st and pay that fee. It is a rotating basis depending on when they want to sign up.
Right. So they
And-
could, maybe 18 months lapses, and whenever they do, they re-up, and
Yes.
it starts then,
And those cards are good for 1 year.
from the time they re-up?
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. I just wondered what that was. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Brendan?
Great. Thanks. This was really well done. And one of the things that I appreciate and like is setting the goals that you have out where the vision is. So it's exciting and to see that adding back things that we weren't able to offer in the past are in there and stuff. So that's great. I know we're always in a tough environment, but I would hope to think that we want to be doing things better. And where is it that we could improve? And it looks like there's some really good ideas that you have here. And notwithstanding some issues with the building, I think it's an amazing facility. And if we think about attracting people to this town and businesses to this town, they look at the schools and they look at the library. And this library is something that we can be proud of that I think does and will attract people. I had a couple of quick questions. Where do the internet service fees? Is that something that through, is it OLA?
OSL. So that's through Ocean State Libraries. And so our consortium fees actually pay for our internet service, and that internet service is through Ocean.
Great. And then you had mentioned, so the e-zones is this ability to get e-books,
Yes.
and it's also through the consortium. Is that a variable thing? Is that more Tiverton residents require it? You have to pay more, or are we kind of on a flat fee? So we're seeing an increase, is just wanting to make sure that you're able to cover the cost.
Yes, so we're seeing an increase in users. We pay a flat fee to Ocean State Libraries for to purchase materials. Though.
So we're getting our money's worth, right?
We definitely are.
That's
We
good.
absolutely are, especially with a 28% increase.
Great. And I really appreciate, I think, Joe's point about who's looking out for the building and how it's doing. I think programmatically, if there's always things that you want to do and feeling, well, it's not our responsibility, that's where we can get in trouble, is making sure someone's making sure that there's a number in there forecasting what we're going to need on maintenance.
Yes.
But thanks.
Jeff actually asked the same question that I was gonna ask about the library cards, but I will add that I am excited that you're gonna be adding Tuesdays back.
We really want
I am
that,
off
and
on
so does
Tuesdays, and
everyone
I pull into
else.
that parking lot more times than I can count and go, oh, it's Tuesday, it's not until 1:30. So it's definitely a service that I'm happy to be added back in.
Yes, and we see it as the #1 request from our patrons, and that's something we definitely want to honor and have set as one of our priority goals.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So just to piggyback on what Jeff said, and I know it's not a huge number, but we have these patrons from out of state who buy the card for the whole state of Rhode Island. I mean, they can access any library in Rhode Island.
Yes, for the $155 fee per year.
And so does that come to our library?
Yes, it does.
Do we have to pay anything to the state for that?
We do not.
So we want to make sure that all those out-of-staters come to Tiverton to get their Rhode Island cards.
And they come from Fall River, right?
Visit the casino then.
One-stop shopping, right?
That's it. So, and you had mentioned one thing about the children's story hour, those kind of things.
Yes.
They don't have to register anymore?
They do not, and I think it's actually really fun for them the way that we do it now. We have a certain number of popsicle sticks that we set out on the desk, and so the kids will come grab the popsicle stick, and that's like their entry ticket in, although we do not limit the number.
That's great, because I know with the other, when we were at Essex, it was limited, and that was always an issue. And my one last thing, and it's just a comment, because it's something that I used many, many times when my children were little, were the passes that I think the Friends purchased those
Yes.
passes to the zoos and different attractions, and hopefully those are still being utilized and
Yes, absolutely. And we actually just added Rhode Island Historical Society as well. And that's a great option that the Friends paid for because we actually get a library program free from Rhode Island Historical Society incorporated with that pass. So we thank them for that.
Thank you. This was really well put together, and like Brendan said, to see the scope and the vision for the next few years is really exciting. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm thrilled. This is the library just with this information. It looks like an incredible success. That we built it and people have come and continue to come and use it. The users that pay a fee, the $785, is there a way to track when most people are around? Could it be summertime folk that are...
We can certainly see if we could. Those are all statistics held by our consortium through our library database of card users. So we can certainly see if we could break it down by when they have registered by month. There's some amazing statistics that we can get. We could even do a heat map of the town of Tiverton to see where the most users of our library live in the town, things like that. So I can
interesting.
certainly
Great.
see if we can do something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking if there were a surge, I would think that would be when it would occur. Go to the beach and or go sailing and bring a book. What happens to the health benefit line if you have an employee get married, or if you have an employee grow their family? What happens to your budget, and where does the money come from?
So if they are an individual and then they would like family plan, then we do have to come up with that money. And that is a substantial difference. I believe it's about $6,000 for an individual plan and around $17,000 for a family plan.
Oh, wow.
So that's a substantial increase that we have to pay for should they choose to do that. And then if somebody does grow their family, that is all still incorporated into the family plan in that cost that we are already paying.
Okay, and is there, there was a page, was it the last page that had how much money you have in the account? Do you have enough in reserve to accommodate if that happens?
We do as of right now, but again, we are looking at some building issues that will come out of that.
Okay.
And so that money is pretty much all accounted for as far as allocations go for ensuring that we can still sustain ourselves in the event that something come up that we didn't expect.
So, I don't know if this would be another legal question. Like, where does the library go if you don't have enough money to cover these things? Because it would be illegal, wouldn't it, if someone gets married and then needs a family plan and there's not enough money in the budget to cover it? Like, we can't do that to an employee. That would be discriminating.
Yes.
Jeff, is that, like, do you know, like, does anyone know where we would get those funds?
We would have to pull from another line is what we would have to do. So where we deemed funds not as necessary, which is unfortunate, we would have to pull from there to support that.
Okay, so really, you don't have any contingency, you don't have any wiggle room in this budget, is that correct?
Within the budget, that's correct. We are on a very,
Okay.
very tight budget, and as far as our increase goes, that was for, as you see, a lot of utilities and maintenance, not as much for staff.
Okay. And then I just wanted to reiterate, Joe, your attention to the buildings is so acute and helpful and smart, and
aggravating.
but but that's why we're here, right? And so thank you for noticing that, and it looks like that's something we need to figure out how to get that into the budget.
If I could piggyback on that a little bit, we do have a trustees building subcommittee, but really it responds to things that break. A lighting fixture breaks. The building is almost 4 years old. I think we need to take Joe's advice. I would like to see a physical inspection done of the building on a regular basis, every 6 months, every year. We have no idea what the roof looks like, Joe can even look at shingles and know that something's wrong, but as a trustee, I don't have that expertise, and I would like the peace of mind knowing that a professional inspects the building on a regular basis to come to us with minor problems instead of finding out we have a huge leak and now we have a lot of water damage to deal with. So it's a conversation I think the trustees would like to have with you in terms of how best do we prevent, minor problems from becoming big ones? How do we identify them? And then how do we budget for those repairs?
Just ask a question too, so that you bring that up, not just for the library, but in buildings that we have in town in general. We normally hear about wear and tear, and we normally hear we're in this situation. But is there a point where we do, like, I don't want to call it an audit, but where we go around and go, all right, we're going to have it and have someone come in and do an inspection and say X, Y, and Z. Is that routinely done on, and maybe this is for Jan, but is it routinely done on the buildings that we own?
I don't think it is.
Years ago.
Yes and no. I think on an ongoing basis, where we use the buildings, people notice certain things. I notice certain things when I come into this building and they haven't been addressed yet. So that's one, but it's perhaps a too informal way. And we certainly could, and I made a note that we might want to institute a more formal schedule, to inspect buildings, just like we require other people to take care of their property and we inspect them for it.
Well, just
We might want to do that for our own building, so I'll look into that.
as we try to get through, it's more like preventative maintenance
Yeah.
as we kind of.
I agree, and I also, just from this discussion, get that we know precious little about those issues with the library, and as a town, we should. It is a town building, so I'll follow up on that and try to come up with this, and I appreciate that question being raised as well.
And then I just had one more to piggyback on, too. How many of your employees are part-time? It's in here somewhere.
Yes. So on the staff organizational chart, I indicated part-time in parentheses.
Okay.
So we have reference, all of our library assistants are part-time.
Okay.
Our office administrator, a custodian, and our pages.
Okay, I
and
can-
youth services
Yeah, I
assistant.
can see that. That's
Okay.
great. Because what Jennifer said about health insurance, that helps you, correct? Because you-
Yes,
Okay, just
absolutely.
making sure. Because I know towns like Westport are actually trying to hire, have been for years, trying to hire part-time and in various capacities to offset that risk to your budget. Thank you.
Do you mind if I make a comment?
Go ahead.
Jennifer, just to tell you, as a member of the Tiverton School Department Building Committee, about 5 years ago, I'm going to say, the Budget Committee did approve a line item that was specifically to hire a firm to come in. They walked all 5 schools and did a comprehensive report, interior and exterior, of all 5 buildings, which we received. They were prioritized by the recommendation of the company that we hired on a 1 to 4 scale, and it was immediate items, things that could wait 3 years, 5 years, and that's what we took. RIDE initially suggested that we do $45 million worth of repairs to the middle school and the high school, which would have included the windows and the bathrooms and things that we all saw. The town only at the time had the ability to bond $19 million, and out of that we took $15.4 million to do the boilers and the roofs, which were the most important at the time. So the town most certainly, I know Jan has talked about it, the town most certainly could do the same thing and have all of their buildings looked at and have a plan.
I'm just gonna say, former town administrator Woshek.
Microphone.
Former town administrator Woshek had done exactly what the school department did on his own, went out and did with the public works director and the building maintenance people, had them put together. It was part of his capital plan, I don't know if you remember. And he gave us lists of things, and we prioritized it. I'm sure that's probably, outdated by now, but in the past, we had done it just using staff. Because everybody's pretty much familiar with the inside of the building, and then the maintenance guys went out and looked at the outside. I don't know, like I said, it's an outdated list probably, but it's something that can be done in-house. We really don't need to hire somebody. Between the department heads and the maintenance people, we pretty much know where the bones lie.
Good job. Anybody else? I have one question. I heard something, and I want to pick up on it. The Tuesdays, or the library's closed on Tuesday. I picked up on that. Is that accurate right now?
Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning
Yes.
it's closed. Is that, okay. And so part of the plan that's in this budget is even sooner than that, I heard, is to open on Tuesday mornings? Is that what I heard?
We certainly hope so. That's something that we're looking at right now, but we want to make sure it's sustainable, because if we were to put that into place and then have to take it away again,
Yeah.
we really would not want to do that. I think that would be so detrimental to the people
Right,
of this
morale.
town who use our library.
So, I mean, is it something that you think, like, it's mentioned here, so is that something that you think that, with your FTEs and whatnot, I mean, is this something you think you can get some hours on Tuesday morning with this? I mean, you obviously have had discussions. If you asked for 2%, is it something you think you can squeeze that in here? Or?
Yes, we believe so. It would require additional staff that morning, but this proposal for our budget, of course, because we've had longtime employees retire, and we have rehired at a lower rate, that is something that we're looking at absolutely for
Okay.
next fiscal year.
Okay. What's that? Yeah, no. Yeah, I saw that, yeah. Okay, well, that's impressive. I wanted to touch on that because to me, that's a big point. It's a real big point. And that's a long ways from where we were a couple of years ago when we talked about the library, so that's big. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't mean to steal the last point, but. That's good. Anyone else? We good? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all. We appreciate it.
Great job.
Thanks.
This was really good. Thank you.
Thank you all for all your work.
suggestions, right?
Oh, it's for employees. Those are employees. Oh, Leroy. Yes. I know. So, I have to just first of all check this. Hello? Hi?
Good evening.
Mr. Kendricks, right?
Yeah.
Leroy, right?
Leroy Kendrick.
Leroy, yeah. So, do you know everyone here?
don't.
Okay, so we'll run around real quick.
Okay.
Joe Souza.
Jay Edwards.
Tom Haley?
Ruth Hollenbach.
Jeff Karen.
Brendan McNally?
Jen Jocelyn is here, and I'm Deb Janik.
And I'm Jen.
Okay. And I'm Leroy Kendricks. I'm the chairman of the Tiverton Wastewater District.
Okay.
And if I can just introduce this section for, as quickly as I can.
Sure.
I wanted to mention that when I first looked at putting a preliminary budget request together, I had a much lower amount in my request. And I was educated by Mr. Kendricks as to why that was not a good idea and sort of the history of the program that we're talking about, the importance of the program, but also the fact that funding had gone down and the effect that has had on the ability of the wastewater district to do something that the town asked it to do. It's a town mandate, it's a town responsibility, it's not something that the town actually can just simply delegate to the wastewater district and then wash its hands, so to speak. And I just want to emphasize that point, that we came to this program as a result of the state telling us that, you know, we needed to do something about wastewater management. And not that this is the only town, this happened all over the state. And wastewater management can be sewering, putting all new sewers in. Actually, there was a preference at that time, which I happen to know from my own background, for putting in more sewers. But some communities much prefer to stick with on-site wastewater treatment for a whole bunch of reasons. The state allowed us to keep going forward with using on-site wastewater treatment in the majority of towns and use sewers where that was absolutely necessary. So that's how the program was created, how a plan was developed that Leroy will go into further, how the town adopted an ordinance. And since then, additional things have happened to put additional pressure on, in particular, how we deal with septic systems that are not functioning correctly. So that put additional pressure on there. But what I just wanted to emphasize is that we're talking about the majority of towns, the majority of the overall wastewater problem or challenge that we have, and that sewering is only one part of what the wastewater district does. Take it away.
Okay. So we'll go through these 5 bullet points. We'll introduce the 2003 Tiverton Wastewater Management Plan. We'll
Excuse
take a
me,
look at.
did you give us a handout with these on here or not?
I just have the slide presentation.
Okay.
And we do have a couple of handouts that'll be further down in the presentation. We'll talk about the town ordinance that came as a result of the wastewater management plan, the cesspool and the cesspool act of 2015, the Tiverton wastewater district, our role as a contractor to the town, funding and enforcement by the town and future needs. So I'd like to start out with a little bit of history. This is we'll talk about the wastewater management plan. Back in the early 2000s, a lot of towns in Rhode Island had no formal wastewater plan. There are some towns that have wastewater plants and the like, but for towns like Tiverton, that were mostly on-site, OWTS stands for on-site wastewater treatment systems. And so the town of Tiverton, through a grant from RIDEM, hired a consultant, and they did a wastewater management plan in 2003. And as a result of that plan, they had some objectives. They, obviously to protect the drinking water and other surface and groundwater through septic system management, to ensure that all of the on-site wastewater treatment systems in Tiverton are properly operated, regularly inspected, and routinely maintained to prevent system malfunction and ensure maximum system life. To outline the procedures for those inspections, repairs, and maintenance, and to enable the town to qualify for a super program called the Septic System Loan Program. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And basically, the plan summarized the town's on-site wastewater issues, initiatives, goals, regulations, et cetera. The findings of the plan were that in 2003, and these numbers are a little bit outdated now, but in 2003 there were approximately 6,760 residential, commercial, and industrial units in town that disposed of wastewater. Today, the district has about 640 of those residents that are now on sewer, or about 9% of the buildings or the properties, which means that 91% of the properties in town are on-site wastewater treatment systems. The town's responsible for those systems. The district is only involved, mandated by its enabling legislation, to deal with sewer systems. And when the district was formed in 2014, all the collection system infrastructure and the pump stations were given to the district. And the district was formed to serve those places in town that would benefit from sewers. At the time that the district was formed, the town subcontracted with the district to address on-site treatment, wastewater treatment systems. So in this budget, the budget that we're talking about now, the town basically pays a fee to the district to administer the town's obligations for wastewater. So basically, as we go down the bullets here, the plan indicated that about 50% of the town's on-site systems are cesspools or other substandard systems. Many of the systems were installed before 1968. And cesspools, as you may know, do not treat wastewater. They're basically a hole in the ground. The wastewater goes in, it leaches into the water table or the water body that's near it. So that's why, like, cesspools near Stafford Pond are not a good idea, because it leaches right into the pond, and that's a drinking water source for Stonebridge Fire District. So part of the idea of the wastewater plan, we'll get to that, is to how do we remedy that and make sure that these failed or substandard systems that affect the soils, the wetlands, the surface water, the groundwater, which is used for drinking, and the coastal waters, which are used for fishing and recreation. So we know in town that there are lots of areas in town that are affected by these failed systems. There is sewage that is leaching into these water bodies and potentially affecting the wells. There's a lot of wells in town too. And so these failed systems affect the wells, the groundwater. So part of the plan too talked about the financial assistance program, we call it the C-SLIP program. And along with coming up with the wastewater management plan, the town qualified for this low-cost financing to help residents fix systems or replace systems that are failed or substandard. So basically, this C-SLIP system, it's a $300 loan origination fee and 1% servicing fee on the outstanding balance. Residents can borrow up to $25,000 for 10 years, and the application process is handled, by the town. Obviously, it's subcontracted to us right now. The on-site wastewater plan was required to participate in the program, and as of last year, the wastewater district secured an additional $9,000 in funding for the residents to secure funding to fix systems. Now, just to be clear, this isn't a loan. It's not a loan to the town. The money comes from the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, and the town is merely a guarantor of these funds. So in the time that this has gone forth, no one's ever defaulted, and the town has never had to pick up any of the loans. But basically, the town is a guarantor of these, and so the more you find these systems, the more people will apply for this low cost financing, and they'll fix their systems.
Can I add something?
Sure.
I just want to emphasize the importance of that program, not just to the town as a general concept, but to the people in town, because the majority of people in town have septic systems, and the cost of upgrading or replacing septic systems is pretty significant. So having this program is pretty critical to a lot of people in town. In order to be eligible for the program, the town has certain responsibilities, which is to develop this waste management plan, wastewater management plan, and to implement it. And one of the things that we're talking about in the context of the budget is, do we in fact invest sufficiently into the program so that we meet our responsibilities under the state regulations to deal with the impacts from, non-functioning septic systems, et cetera, et cetera. If we don't, we lose eligibility for this community septic system loan program. That means that residents lose the opportunity to, take advantage of the low-interest loan program.
Can I ask you a question? Doesn't HUD offer that same program?
No.
Well, I seem to think they do. Or if it's some state agency, DEM, because there have been people that had failed systems and got state low-interest loans to repair it.
So another entity is church community. They offer not a specific program for wastewater, but they offer a loan program that caters some to senior citizens that even will loan up to a certain amount of interest-free.
They did a trailer park on Brayton Road.
Right. So HUD comes in when you have a trailer park, because HUD is more involved in both the financial assistance if that is needed and the regulation of certain aspects of it. So there may, at some point, for some of those particular situations, be HUD assistance. This is about, the vast majority, I would say, of septic systems in Tiverton and in other towns where the state program is structured so that it's not the state paying for everything. What the state is trying to do is set standards and sort of outcomes that we need to achieve. And then it developed this program that has communities take responsibility for on-site wastewater treatment. And this is another important thing, because it was never thought of as anybody's business other than the business of the people who own the property. And so everybody was expected to just deal with it one by one by one by one, as if that is realistic. It isn't realistic. And just like it's important for a town to take responsibility for sewer, the sewer approach to wastewater management, it's important that we take responsibility for the rest of the picture, which in this case is the majority of the picture, which doesn't mean that the town has to pay for everything. It's still the individual property owner that goes out to get this loan and that has to pay the loan back, fortunately at a low interest rate. But it's not as if we take over all of the costs. We just try to provide a program and a structure and the assistance so that it actually starts to work. And I believe that based on the numbers, and Leroy has provided some statistics that you have in front of you, it's beginning to work. The question is, are we making enough progress fast enough to actually sort of rescue the water resources that we're talking about?
Okay. So in the plan, it has a management and administrative section. And basically it says that this plan is based on a comprehensive plan that started back in 1997. And then once the plan was done in 2003, there was an on-site wastewater management ordinance passed sometime between 2004 and 2006. And that ordinance basically is all the rules and regulations pertaining to on-site wastewater treatment for the town. And it also, in 2004, there was a superintendent hired to help administer the program as well. At that time, before the district even existed, they took care of the sewers in town and the pump stations also. But basically, the plan called for town-wide inspections to be completed within 6 years. This was also stated in the ordinance. So the ordinance called for all that. Now, that being said, the plan also called for public education and outreach. Basically, all on-site systems were to be inspected and that information put into a database so that compliance with the ordinance could be tracked. So the homeowner hires an inspector, they go out, they inspect, and the inspector's responsible for, they get online access to the database, and they put the data in the database, and that is the baseline inspection, and then the town, or in this case the district, would track when that property was inspected and send out reminders, X years later when an inspection is due again, et cetera. So, I mean, basically, if we were a different town or a different situation, we'd have a wastewater treatment plant and a collection system and all that, and that would be millions and millions of dollars. Well, we're not that. We have a certain area of town that would benefit from sewers, but the vast majority of town will never have sewers. It's just not cost effective. And so it's responsibility of the town to own wastewater for the town. And so having this program and overseeing wastewater for the on-site systems is basically what this management plan is all about. Now, when the plan was done, those were the priorities: the Stafford Pond watershed, Nanaquacket, Nonquit Pond, Seconic waterfront, and then the remainder of the town. Now, since 2004, most of this has not been done. The Stafford Pond watershed, about 70%, well, between Stafford Pond, and Nanaquacket, about 70% of the systems have been inspected. And as a result of those inspections, there's been, several failed systems have been taken care of. 30% people have not responded, they just ignored it. Your ordinance has remedies, but it's the town that has to enforce them. And so there's not been any real movement toward enforcement in that. So part of this presentation is to talk about, going ahead, what's the town gonna do about enforcing? So that's a whole nother subject, but we'll touch on it. Anything to add? Okay. So finally, in plan management administration, in 2003, it was recommended in the plan to have a part-time individual to do all of the administration of on-site systems, and it was set for $40,000 a year for part-time superintendent. The plan basically couldn't be implemented effectively with only a part-time effort. It's just too much work between sending out letters and sending out second notices and followed up with inspectors. You've got 6,000 of these to do, close to. The superintendent had not only that to do, but they have to deal with the day-by-day on-site calls that come in from residents. My neighbor's system is leaking. That's to deal with that. They had to deal with, administering the C-slip loan, system program, the whole deal. It just wasn't enough time. Then when the district came into being in 2014, we started the district, and we were just all part-time people. We didn't have the time either at that time. So basically, the ordinance, moving on to the ordinance now from the plan. The ordinance basically provides the detail on on-site wastewater management for the town, including education, inspections, maintenance, enforcement, appeals, variances, and financing. So the ordinance can be found online. So we can, I mean, you can go to our site, we have it, and it should be able to be accessed from the town site. Also, in the meantime, there was the Rhode Island Cesspool Act of 2015 that basically says that there can be no cesspools within 200 feet of a water body or a public well. And so those cesspools have to be replaced, period. It also says that cesspools must be replaced within a year of a property being sold. Now that was the change for 2015. It doesn't state who's responsible for repairing or replacing it, but that's a negotiation between the buyer and the seller. But every time that there's a property transaction, usually we get a call from the real estate agent saying, you know, what kind of system is it? Is there a plan for it to be on sewer? We deal with real estate inquiries all the time when there's a lot of activity because of the Cesspool Act. And all failed systems must be replaced, or the property must be connected to a sewer, kind of depending on the area of town. So our role, just to reestablish the district was established to run and maintain the existing wastewater collection system for the town, and to develop and execute projects in areas of town where sewering is the best way to manage wastewater. We're not trying to sewer the whole town because it doesn't make any sense. But in those areas, there's certain areas like we've got a project planned along Riverside Drive and Robert Gray where there's not enough land or soil conditions, water table, that septic systems just don't make sense. And so areas like that, there's a place like on Dotson Estates, there's a trailer park in town, you know, septic systems, individual septic systems don't make sense there either. So there are various places in town where it makes sense. In the casino, they're hooked up to sewer. It doesn't make any sense. You can't have a septic system with that much. You'd have to have a treatment plant. And so the second bullet, we're also subcontracted by the town to basically manage the on-site wastewater treatment systems. The town is primarily responsible, but that's basically 90% of all wastewater needs in the town. And then the wastewater plan, the Article 9 ordinance and the Cesspool Act are the scope of work that meets the town's needs. So someone, whether it's the district or the town itself, needs to do all of these things and comply with their own wastewater plan and their own ordinances. So, to date, the funding to do these things has been pretty scant. In 2015, the first year of the district, there was $20,000 allowance in the budget to take care of on-site wastewater treatment systems for the town. Now, as we started our district in July of 2014, which is fiscal year 15, we only had 4 part-time people. We were just getting started. We had no capacity, no resources to do any inspection or anything to do with the wastewater management plan. We did the C-slip administration and the day-to-day dealing with the real estate people and the day-to-day on-site issues that would come up with residents. We did that in 15 and 16. In 17, we were able to talk to the town administrator, and they advocated for us to start taking up doing some of the work that was mandated by the wastewater management plan. We had an extra $18,000 to do that, so we were able to send out letters. We sent out about 500 letters. We got about 300 inspections done that year, and we did some follow-up, and we took care of a lot of C-slip loans. There were failures, about 10% failures, and so we helped those people get loans, and et cetera. In 2018, there was some miscommunications and some lack of knowledge, and there was someone on the council that thought that the state was taking care of wastewater and that the district, that the town no longer needed the district to take care of on-site systems, which I don't know where they got that idea from, but they recommended at one meeting that the funding be set to 0. And then I went to the following meeting to inform them as to what needed to happen, and they set the rate back up to 38,000. It got to the budget committee, and I wasn't allowed to come to the budget committee meeting. I was advised that I did not need to come to the meeting. And the budget committee, not knowing anything more about it, said, well, somebody said it should be 0, and you're saying it should be 38, we'll just cut it to 20. And that's kind of how it got to 20 in 2018. And then last year, the town council said, well, you know, we put 30 in there for you. So it's been just kind of not really taken seriously. So, I mean, in talking with Jan, he is requesting 38.5 this year. But just, I put this in for comparison. Portsmouth has all cesspools, no sewers. They have a full-time person, it's $100,000 a year in their budget. And Charlestown is $140,000. And there are similar communities as Tiverton. So just to give you some perspective. So there are still about 5,200 out of about 6,300 that need a baseline inspection to establish the type and condition of their on-site treatment system. So since 2004, only around 1,100 systems have been inspected. And so there's still quite a bit of work to do. Out of those 5,200 properties, about 2,900 were constructed prior to the state septic regulations or before 1968, and therefore could be cesspools that don't treat wastewater. So there's a lot potentially out there. We've drafted a plan, a preliminary plan for inspecting the properties. You have them. Okay. So, anybody's interested? So, we've divided the town up into areas, and this is just a draft. It has to obviously be approved by the town as to what the priorities are, but we've put together a preliminary 5-year plan for completing the other inspections in town. So,
I just want to add something. When we talk about it this afternoon, I suggested that we underline the word baseline. Baseline is only that. It's only the beginning of a program so that you know what the situation is that you have to deal with. How many septic systems are there? How many of them are cesspools? Which ones are advanced systems versus systems that are basically obsolete? Those are the baseline inspections. You then should be following up on some regular basis with how is it going? Were repairs made? Were upgrades made? But also, you know, sort of responding to water quality information that you collect over time. So what the program is really looking to do over time is have like a cycle of inspections, so that you go around town on some regular basis, you come back to do additional inspections. It's not something that you do once and then somehow miraculously everything gets solved.
Can I ask a question about this slide?
sure.
So out of the 6,300, 5,200, you said possibly the ones that were built before 1968, do you track homes that are sold with after? So like when we bought, we have septic, but we had to have it inspected.
Yes.
And made sure it was up to code. So are these homes that have not sold, or that there's possibly recent sales in here that would have, or when it says that within a year you have to change over from a cesspool, is that tracked whether the owner actually does it?
Yeah, we try to track it. I mean, we get a lot of real estate calls, so that puts it on the radar, and we can look into the database and see if we have information on the age of the system or condition or when's the last time it was inspected, et cetera. That's part of the information that real estate people are looking at from, or is that property gonna be sewered anytime soon? So if it's gonna be sewered, or it's in the plan, then there's some relief in having to replace it within that time period if it's actually gonna be sewers coming through soon. So we work with the real estate people to give them that information.
I was just gonna say, if you check with any of the real estate agents or even the banks, you'll find if a house comes for sale, the septic system is changed before the house they close. All right, the banks won't finance the house if there's a cesspool or a failed system. So it has to be done, and the owner generally pays for it, even though I just went through that in Island Park,
Yeah, I
and
knew
I
that
checked
when it-
around, and I found out it's standard procedure.
Yeah,
Banks won't finance it unless the septic's put in.
I knew that part
So
of
it
it,
won't
but I
lag
didn't
a
know
year.
if the town had like information on that, like if it was shared with the town.
DEM keeps records on septic. DEM basically is the body that's responsible for septic. The town is not responsible. That's why we got sued over at Tiverton in Four Corners and had to pay Mrs. Weir $300,000 because we went over there and started meddling with her septic system.
With all due respect, that is
With all
not
due respect, that's
accurate
exactly what
information.
happened.
That's wrong information.
Wait, what
The
are you
town-
talking about? I read the Daily News. It was in the, don't interrupt me to begin with. I have the floor, and I read it in the Daily News.
Joe, it's okay. Finish
I
what
also
you want to say.
spoke with her, okay? And I was on the council when they were meddling with it. I was in the executive sessions.
Yeah, we
The
did.
town is not responsible for septic systems. DEM is. And when the law changed in 2014, 15, whatever it was, that people didn't have to change the septic system until they sold the home, unless it's failed or within 200 feet of the water. So the only thing, if anything, we should be looking at, and it was usually the building inspector who went out there, and then he would contact DEM. If somebody was smelling septic or it was running down the hill into your yard, it was a failed system. And then the building inspector would be notified, and then we notify DEM. The town doesn't have jurisdiction over septic systems. And if we have to have a lawyer come in and explain that to Mr. Administrator here, that's fine. But we already got sued for meddling.
Okay.
Can I clarify, please?
I'll let you speak, Jan.
So the state has jurisdiction over septic systems. We cannot tell people, what kind of septic system they should, how it should be designed, et cetera, et cetera. That's absolutely true. The state regulates septic systems. The state also tries to come up with a way that, instead of saying that, we're actually getting results in terms of septic systems being replaced and upgraded, et cetera. And for that reason, it has developed this program, the Community Septic System Loan Program. And as I said before, the town is not eligible for that program unless we undertake our part of it, which includes doing the inspections, providing the assistance, tracking things, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not saying that the town all of a sudden has legal authority to tell people everything, relating to septic systems. That's not the case. But it's also not the case that the town can say we are not responsible. We are responsible if we want to have this kind of a program available to our residents.
Thank you, Jan.
If I could, please, just follow up.
Go ahead, Joe.
There are other ways to get low-interest loans. And if you're saying, for instance, a senior citizen, 80 years old, living in a house up in the north end, you have a cesspool, and it fails, believe it or not, you can still get a waiver from the DEM. Or they do like a reverse mortgage to get the thing fixed, and then when the woman, so then this is not the only option to get low income. And I believe there is something through the state of Rhode Island. It might be that we're administering it to help the people out, but this is something that could be handled through like a state welfare office or get, something even the senior center would get involved in.
Okay.
So, Joe, we did actually have to pay $300,000 due to that Tiverton Four Corners thing.
I read the article.
Okay, I'm just making sure. I just wanted to know, because I
Okay.
don't like that. So-
Okay, so,
that kind of
Leroy, are you, I have a question, real basic question. I have two of these. Are they the same?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. So, is your presentation done? Or?
I have a couple more slides.
All right, let's finish it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, this slide basically says that beyond fiscal year 20, that we're recommending that the town look at something like $105,000 a year to fully meet the needs of the residents, health and safety, and protect drinking water. I know this is a big increase, but it really, if you really want to do the mandate, That's what we think you need to invest. And just to put it in perspective, I said before that towns that have wastewater treatment plants and sewer collection systems, et cetera, pay millions of dollars to treat their wastewater. And we're not talking anywhere near that as the town's obligation, because most of the cost is picked up by the homeowner. But the town does have a responsibility to protect the health and safety of the citizens and the environment. And so we think in order to fulfill the needs and the requirements of the ordinance and the plan, the investment should be more something like this. The town needs to enforce the ordinance, and you know, I told you that compliance was about 70%. Well, 30% people are saying, you know, we're not going to inspect or whatever. And Charlestown uses the municipal court as a way for enforcement, and that's what we're recommending that the town of Tiverton do. That takes the politics out of it, and it's, you know, that's how enforcement is. Because if you get a notice of violation, you know, the town council or town government has to figure out what they're going to do with that. And you can believe that a lot of those 30% that are not responding probably have systems that are failed. So you're not going to pick up all the systems that need to be picked up if you don't have a way of enforcing the rules. And like Joe said, there are some areas in town where you got sewage running down the hill, and that's a problem. The last bullet is, you know, the town, the district and the inspectors need to work together to identify problem areas and resolve them. And the last slide has to do with what we think the future actions ought to be. There needs to be a funding plan for wastewater activities. The town needs to set up a municipal court to enforce the wastewater ordinance and establish a close working relationship with the district. And now.
So in closing, what I would say is, you've seen my preliminary budget request, which is for $37,500. And some of you may say, well, how can you only request that? I'm not sure how many of you would ask that question, but it could be asked, since we just said that, you know, we really should be at $105,000. That's what Leroy's estimate is, to be able to administer a program and sort of begin to meet some of the deadlines that we're supposed to be meeting. My suggestion is that at the very least, based on what I have learned about this program and about the current conditions in Tiverton, that we need to get back to the previous level of $37,500, $38,000 to do what that last slide showed. Come up with, you know, what is it going to take to actually make sure that we meet our goals and our mandate, our legal mandate, to get rid of septic systems that don't work anymore, to get rid of cesspools where they're not supposed to be. They're illegal right now in certain areas, but we haven't been able to actually eliminate them. Come up with a good plan. What will it take administratively? What will it take to provide the assistance to the homeowners, which they actually really appreciate? But with the money that we now put in the budget, be able to do at least that, develop a longer-term plan, more or less like sort of the capital planning. You know, what can we do this year? And part of what we do this year is to have a fuller, a more elaborate plan for the next 5 years or so.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to go around for questions. I'm going to start on this.
No, it's okay.
Who did I start? Where did I go last time? Who went last? We're going to start over here? Go ahead. Jennifer, please. Thank you, Leroy.
Can you tell us what are our risks, or is it illness? So when septic goes into our water system, what happens to the public, the Tiverton public?
So septic systems and human waste carries lots of bacteria, E. coli, and that sort of thing. So basically, if you know, there's rules that say that you have to have a septic system, a functioning septic system so far away from a well site, for instance. But let's say you have a cesspool there, the cesspool doesn't really treat wastewater. It just injects it into the ground untreated. And so there's a possibility that if you have a cesspool, that water will leach over to your well and infect the well, and you would be drinking water that has bacteria in it.
We turned it back.
The other, so there's a risk, there's an illness risk. There's a risk, obviously, of the homeowner if they have a failed septic system. If it doesn't get fixed, that could cause a failure of the well, et cetera. So also, if you've got raw sewage just running down the street or on the surface of people's land, and kids are playing in the yard, then there's another illness risk there. So when we talk about health and safety, that's really it. And cesspools are the worst because they're more prone to fail, and if they fail, they stop. The water stops going into the ground, it comes up, and there's a problem. Also, you've heard when beaches close, in the summertime, et cetera, that's because wastewater from whatever, even wastewater treatment plants that have failed in some way, the wastewater gets into the coastal areas and they close the beaches.
Yeah.
And so the town of Tiverton has been cited. There's some storm outfalls that go into the water body. And a few years ago, DEM came down on Tiverton and said, listen, you guys need to put in sewers, because that area along Riverside Drive and Robert Gray, that's the worst area in town where you're getting infiltration. A lot of the houses on Riverside Drive are kind of right there next to the water, even above the water. Where do you think that sewage is going? And so if you're swimming out there or whatever, just know that you're swimming in waters that are infected, with sewage. That's the risk.
When we moved here in 2000, I signed my son up for Red Cross swimming at Grinnell Beach, and I got him out of the water after his lesson, and that afternoon he came out and he had a rash all over his body. My dad was a dermatologist, and I called him up and he said, there's feces in the water. He needs to take swimming lessons somewhere else. So this is a problem. Like, we have such a beautiful beach now down at Grinnell. I would imagine that the cost of taking care of people, like to take my son to the doctor to get treatment for his rash, then is going to cost me money. It costs everybody more money. When I look at the numbers, 105,000 versus the 38, it would be $10 more per household to fund your request, and it seems to make economic sense for every household. We'd all be spending a lot less if we're not dealing with the illness that comes from this. So, thank you.
I was on that budget committee and we cut that, and I don't think that, I know I did not have any understanding of exactly what you did.
Right.
Or what the needs were. And this presentation was eye-opening. But I was also here Monday night and you talked about Bay Street, so that's another whole area that I can't even wrap my head around at this point.
Yeah.
And I do agree with Jen, we have our resources, but Stafford Pond is a water supply.
It's a watershed and a water supply.
So is that tested? Do we check that? I mean, people are drinking that.
They are. So, Stafford Pond was the first area that was inspected and has had the most scrutiny because it is a drinking water source, and so is Nonquit, not for Tiverton, but for Newport. And so we've sent out the letters, and there's still, a number of people over there that haven't been inspected. But we don't have the power to go in there and fine them or whatever. That's in your ordinance, but does the town have the wherewithal to do it? You know, there's political issues, there's financial issues, et cetera, and we didn't have the resources, you know, through the budget cuts and that sort of thing. We don't have the resources to pursue it, send out 2-3 letters, certified mail and all that stuff. To what end if the town isn't gonna back it up? So that's why one of the things that we're doing this year is we're saying, listen, we need to partner with the town. I mean, if the town wants us involved in dealing with this, we need to work very closely with the town, and the town not only needs to increase funding for the resources to carry out the wastewater management program, but it also needs to put the mechanism in place to have municipal court, so that it has some mechanism to enforce these things.
So, yeah, this is a
I think
big-
the town has had its head in the sand on wastewater for many years. Pretty much the town hasn't spent a nickel for sewers. All the sewers in town have come from CDBG money or developers or private owners. And so they gave, you know, the district took the sewers over, but $20,000 a year for 6,000 people that are on-site systems, it just doesn't work. You know, you pay $500,000 for a fire truck to protect the health and safety of the residents of this town. $100,000 is nothing for the health and safety of saving our, you know, the coastal waters, the drinking water, protecting kids from sewage running down streets. It's nothing. So $20,000 makes no sense. $38,000 makes no sense. Not when you're talking about what the risks are.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. This was truly eye-opening.
Jennifer?
I don't have any questions, but thank you.
So I'm curious, the 37.5 that's requested, how would that money be spent? Primarily continuing with the inspections?
He's going to pass out a form. We presented, when we initially asked for $38,000 back for FY17, we put together this sheet. So this will tell
Great.
you how we spent the 38.
Yeah.
But basically, that gives you the detail, but basically, about $20,000 covers handling the day-to-day real estate calls, resident calls on wastewater, on-site wastewater issues in town. And then we put in about $18,000. Matter of fact, we actually hired a part-time person during that year to deal with the on-site work. And so after the budget was cut, we basically had to cut that person out because we couldn't afford it because the town wasn't paying us.
Yeah.
So we didn't follow up. This year, we only had $10,000 over the $20,000, so we've been able to do limited work on this, but we really are not doing much.
Great.
Because we can't really afford it.
So if in the request, the 37.5, the 38 was in, this gives us how the money would be spent, would be a part-time?
Approximately. I mean, that's how we budgeted in 2017.
And it's a mix in terms of administering the program and doing inspections and
That's right.
with that. Do we have the capacity, money rains from the sky and says, okay, we could meet the $100,000. Could we scale up in a year?
Yes. We would hire a person to do this. Yeah.
Do any towns outsource it? I've seen when I look at the backlog, I mean, we're talking about thousands, right? So this is something that could take a long time. This is also a
Well, I know Charlestown, they've hired people internally to do it themselves, just the inspection piece.
Right.
And so, you know, basically the town could take it back.
Right.
Completely.
Yeah, no, I'm just
but
saying it's like this is doing a lot more than what we're doing right now.
Right.
We have a huge need, and then if this were decided as a priority, could we do it in fiscal 20? If we double this, if we went one and a half times this, what you're basically saying though is don't do less than this which is where we've been in.
Yeah, I mean, we would hire someone because, you know, all our whole staff is part-time. We have 4 part-time people. And so we would hire another part-time people, we'd pay them $18,000 or whatever the case is, and they would do what they could do based on the funding. And if you said, oh, we got more money, we'd hire a full-time person to do it. Because in order for us to inspect 5,000 homes or go through administer that in 5 years, that's 1,000 a year.
Yeah.
And all the work associated, those inspections are gonna generate more C-slip loan applications and more walking, customer residents through the process, et cetera. So we could scale up and do the work. That would be in the best interest of the town.
Great. Thank you.
Just one other thing on that is, Leroy hasn't really talked about education, the education part of this, which is actually a very important piece, and also mandated by the state as part of the C-SLIP program. And I'm mentioning it because there's both a challenge there of how do we do the public awareness piece, because just doing enforcement and being punitive about it only works so much. So it's important that we have the assistance program. It's also important we have an educational program. There are opportunities to partner with other institutions and organizations to do that. URI has a program, and it would be really good for us to work with entities like that. And some of them actually have been very involved in Tiverton and have done the studies for the watersheds that resulted in the watershed overlay districts and things like that. So there are opportunities to actually leverage some of the investment that we make and get that additional assistance as well.
Yeah, we also would like to do programs at the library and at the senior centers and at Pardon Gray Day and those, and really get the word out there about, wastewater in town.
I have a question, thank you. So, some odd years ago, not that many, doesn't seem that many, I live in Nanaquacket, and I got some letter in the mail, and I did whatever the letter said, and someone came to my house, and I paid them money, and they inspected my system, and I passed, and I haven't thought about it since, frankly. But my memory is that person was on a list. And there was a list on an internet site somewhere, and there was a dozen or 15 names.
Right.
And you could pick one, and, yeah.
That's right.
So that was some sort of a set of independent people, contractors.
Correct.
So to Brandon's question, why aren't we doing that anymore?
We're exactly doing that.
So
We're not inspecting.
I paid hundreds of dollars. I paid
That's right.
a piece of money to this person.
Right.
To do this.
Right.
But now we're paying money to this person, we're hiring this person, and then the homeowner pays money to him as well to come to their house?
Yeah, so this money for this is just to purely administer the program, not to do the physical inspections. To do an inspection, obviously, you had to have someone pump out your system, inspect it. They wrote a report, and they submitted that report to the database. So now we understand what's on your property, when's the last time it was inspected, et cetera. And so when X years come up, whatever they recommended, you might get a notice from us that says, it's time for a follow-up inspection or pumpage or something like that. So it's an ongoing situation. But somebody has to make sure that, there are people who haven't pumped their system in 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's what the inspection program is about, is to find, to inspect everyone in town, figure out where all the problems are, and get people aware of the problems.
Okay. So this money is a layer above this list of independent contractors.
Correct. Yeah, if you get a letter that says you need to do your baseline inspection, then it's up to you to contract with one of those contractors, and
But once you've done the baseline inspection, you're done. I got that letter, I don't know, whatever it was.
Probably 4 or 5 years ago.
So whenever you did Nanaquacket and Center,
Yeah,
you'll know
yeah.
when you did that.
Yeah, so, but you're done with the baseline, but you may get a follow-up letter 3 years later that says, because that inspector recommended that based on what they pumped out of your system, et cetera, you should do your system every 3 years. So you may get a letter that says, hey, it's time to repump your system based on the information.
I just wanted to understand, I'm glad I clarified the layers of contractor versus what the government people are doing. Thank you.
Right.
Ruth, keep moving, thank you.
The wastewater district, is that just for Tiverton? I didn't understand. Wait,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah, the wastewater district is just for Tiverton, and it's a certain area of Tiverton. It goes from State Line to 24 and from Fish Road to the water.
Okay.
That's the district.
Also, I know there's new types of cesspools. I'm just going to mention it because the old ones are the ones that failed. They collapsed.
New
The
types
ones
of
do not
septic
collapse.
systems,
Okay.
yes.
Still, septic systems are better in general, I think, and they don't need to be pumped as often and things like that.
It really just depends on how,
On the whole
if you got a family of
situation.
5,
Okay,
it's one thing.
that's
If it's
good.
2 people, it's different.
So but your general, what you're saying is septic systems is what you want to replace with, not the new cesspools, right?
No, cesspools
Okay.
are old.
No, there are new ones. There are new types.
No.
Systems versus
Uh,
cesspools.
right, but there-
Cesspools by definition.
There are old cesspools and there are new cesspools. I saw this
There
on
are
the web.
no new cesspools.
There are.
No, there's
There-
no more cesspools.
Well-
That was the 50s.
Cesspools are whole.
Okay, so you're saying that's out. Okay, just
Yeah,
making sure.
there are no
thank
cesspools
you.
anymore.
That's
They're
good,
outlawed.
thank you. Just making sure.
Okay.
What's the rate on the loans that they?
There's no interest. There's a $300 loan origination fee, and there's a 1% service fee per year on the outstanding balance. There is no interest.
Okay, no interest, okay. See, so, okay, that's good. So they do water tests all over our shores, and I know last year I saw not one notice of any issue with the water here. Not one. On the beaches, the swimming, we were always able to go in. There was, every water test they did was not telling us that there was an issue. So do you work with them, the DEM, on making these water tests? I mean, I don't see anything happening, and they do it all along the shore. Do you know, Jan?
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, most of the testing along the beaches is done by the Department of Health, although
Okay.
DEM does it as well.
Okay.
And actually, we had our own Harbor Management Committee, I think, do testing as well. It was
Okay.
told to do that for some period of time. The one thing I want to point out is that certainly in some areas, septic systems contribute to pollution of coastal waters. And it's a significant source of that, with stormwater and other sources. But it's not the only type of water body that we're concerned with. We're concerned with the groundwater underneath, in particular in those areas of town where you have a lot of wells. Because, septic systems not functioning will ultimately impact the wells as well. And so when you start thinking about watersheds and when things infiltrate into the ground and into the water table where that ultimately ends up, it can end up in a drinking water supply, it can end up in a swimming, in place where people swim, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why it's a widespread problem, not only, at the beaches.
Okay, but the water table, the underlying, what did you call it, on the water underneath? You called
What's
it
an aquifer or groundwater, yeah.
only affects the people with wells in South Tiverton, right? So that's
No, actually, it's not only South Tiverton.
the area, whatever area you want to call
Right,
it.
it's
No,
90%
south of
of
your
town
district, yeah.
where you have this potential problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I don't see, like, I'm on a well down there, and I don't see any issues with how any failed septic could ever touch my water.
Well, you certainly don't see it.
No, I don't
There's some
mean
people
it,
who
I don't
feel
mean
it
that
after
literally.
a
I don't mean
while.
that literally. I just, okay. Okay, so I'm taking in what you say, I'm learning, and thank you very much for that. I just want to get a few questions out, and then I will go research it too, and I understand
Okay.
what you're saying.
Feel free to go to our site.
What is the site?
It's twwd.org.
Okay.
And there's reference materials there. It talks about the baseline inspections, et cetera. There's a whole section on on-site wastewater management.
Okay, and the last thing is that we understand that there's only a portion of town that's affected by this.
No, the whole town is affected.
No, as far as getting new septic systems, having to get a new septic system. It's not, certain areas are not on town, certain areas are on town water, right?
Water has nothing to do with this.
I mean, town septic, I'm sorry. So certain areas
Sewer.
are on town sewer and certain are not.
Right.
okay?
But
So,
there's only 640 properties on sewer, there's almost 6,000 that have on-site systems.
Okay, okay.
So 90% of the town falls under this
Okay, thank
wastewater.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you for the presentation.
Tom?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understood the regulatory aspects of this. In '68, the state came up with standards for constructing septic systems?
Yeah. Yes. In 1968, they outlawed cesspools. That was
Okay.
51 years ago.
All right.
And so anything that has a cesspool in it, it's at least 50 years old or
Right.
older.
Right.
And it doesn't treat wastewater. So the notion today, you actually need to treat the wastewater with a septic system before it's allowed to leach into the ground.
So that's a practical aspect of this.
Right.
I'm not after that.
Okay.
I just want the, I mean, just kind of the follow the regulatory path here. So with those regulations, did they also come up with performance, how to inspect? That's a 68 thing too?
Yeah, the inspectors, everybody that's on the list that he talked about are certified, inspectors for on-site systems. And so they can go in and identify a cesspool versus a septic system, a failed system versus one that's
Yeah,
functioning
okay.
properly, et cetera.
Right, okay. And so the town has an ordinance.
Yes.
Well, the state's not enforcing this, right? All they're doing is saying, they're enforcing new construction, but they're saying you need to comply, your towns, you need to comply, or we're not going to allow you to have this interest-free loan.
Well, that's not just the only thing. I mean, obviously, you need to comply because you need to stop polluting the water bodies, or we can fine you or give you a notice of violation, like they did with Portsmouth a few years ago.
The state does.
Yeah, the
Okay.
state stepped in, and because Portsmouth said we're not, we don't want sewers, et cetera,
Yeah.
and they refused. They just dragged it and dragged it, dragged. They fined them, and now they're under the highest scrutiny in the state in terms of their septic systems, and they cost the most because they require these high-tech systems.
Right, right.
So they're not paying 15, 20,000, they're paying 30, 40,000.
Okay.
Because they refuse to deal with sewers.
Like Jeff, I had someone come and inspected me, and I failed, and I failed. And so I felt obligated to fix it. I think maybe it was just all on me, right?
Yes.
Okay, so, but how does the state come and assess like a town? You're not doing this right. What, do they also send individual inspectors around? Or it's the wastewater type of thing? What's?
This is going back into my own past when I worked with the, I think originally it's fair to say, the state has the authority over septic systems. Therefore, it should do all kinds of things
Right.
to carry out its responsibilities. That takes money. It
Right.
takes people. And for a long, long time, the DEM hasn't had the capacity to do what needs to be done. So it has focused a lot on, when new construction happens,
Right.
and people install a septic system, making sure that you get there, check it out, make sure it's being designed and installed the right way. And even that, it doesn't have the capacity to do in each and every instance. So it definitely has insufficient capacity to then, on top of that, go around and check for itself whether septic systems are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And the solution it has come up with, because one theoretical solution is that you give DM 300 people to do all this work and go check everything out. It's not going to happen in the budget process or in the political process.
Right, right.
So the approach has become, let's try to come up with basically a partnership program with the cities and towns that have septic systems. Is you do this, you work with us to make this happen. We can have this assistance program that will actually help your residents reduce the cost of having to come into compliance with our standards. So it's really, in a way, trying to share the responsibility, not so much as, who can dictate, but who can help make things actually happen so we don't keep polluting our water.
Okay, that gets to the sort of the impetus to my these questions is is the municipal court aspect that you had on the slide. It sounded like a pretty heavy hand type of thing.
Well, it's one thing, and don't forget, sometimes when you talk about enforcement, it's also a matter of fairness, because there are
Right.
people who do the right thing.
Right.
And like you said, I felt it's my responsibility.
right.
You know, and a lot of people do what needs to be done, and other people get away with not doing it. And so
Right.
there is some issue there, and that becomes a disincentive. So in fairness, it's a good thing to enforce. In fairness, it's a good thing to have a municipal court that, in theory, could be doing this. We have to look at our enabling legislation, whether our municipal court can do it right now, or we need to adjust that. But then a municipal court has its own capacity issues as well. So it's something that, you know, it's easier to mention it as a solution. We certainly should be using it, but that too may need some additional investigation as to how do you make that work.
Okay, I have enough. That's enough. Thank you.
And just what Tom said, it's state ordinance, right? You said we have an ordinance. It's the state that has
We
the
have an
ordinance.
ordinance.
Town.
Also, town, okay, thank you, go ahead.
State doesn't mind.
Jay?
All right, so the town has an ordinance, and we support the program financially, moderately, but we support it. If we do not obey our own ordinance, which we are not, are we in danger of being kicked out of this program?
I'd say potentially, but I think that the DEM would want to encourage us to stay in it because they're trying to help the citizens. I mean, this is about helping the citizens.
Yeah, so the fact that we're not performing the inspections like we say we will.
Right.
My experience in my past life was we wrote our own ordinances, and then people would inspect us. And if you weren't living to the letter of your law, that was the worst thing you could do. It was worse than anything. And that's where we're doing. We're not doing it.
Nah.
Okay. Can any homeowner at any time apply for one of these loans?
Yes.
You don't have to have a failed system. Okay.
I mean, if you want to replace your system or whatever, yes.
I mean, I could leave this room now, go to your office tomorrow, and apply for this loan.
Correct.
Is there money in that program to give out?
Yes. As a matter of fact,
How long does it generally take to get an approval?
not very long, weeks.
No, pretty quick.
Yeah, pretty quick.
And it has nothing to do with income or anything?
Well, there is a debt to income ratio test that there is.
Other than that.
Yeah, there are
I
some
mean,
requirements, but yes.
I can make $50,000 or I can make $500,000, I could still
Yes.
get one of these loans.
That's right. You don't have to be low income or moderate income or this.
And I would assume that there would be a lien on your property
Correct.
until,
Until it's paid off, yes.
okay. And just so anybody in here, who, if anybody's interested, URI has classes that I've gone to them. And they'll give you a class on all the kinds of new septic systems there are. They'll take you around to different sites. You'll see some really amazing systems. So if you ever want to go on one of them, it's available.
Thank you, Jay.
Well, I'm gonna say first off, when this ordinance passed, it went above and beyond what DEM was actually requiring. DEM was only looking at cesspools. And, you know, it was around the waterways where there were pollution. That's what they were complaining about, the areas he had talked about earlier. There was never a plan for us to inspect the whole town. So that was added on by the council at the time. Louise Durfee, I believe, was the architect of the ordinance, former DEM head. And they went way beyond what this is not an unfunded mandate. This is not even a mandate. I mean, some towns don't do this. We decided that as a town, we wanted to do it. The council at that time decided. I just want to ask, are you still a volunteer?
Yes.
I just want to say this. I've watched you since you've started with this, put your heart and soul into this. And I know you believe everything you tell us. And I'm sorry, it's not that I don't agree with you on your subject matter, but I don't agree that the town should have to pay for it. I think this should be what Jan had talked about. DEM should be handling this stuff. Septic systems are a state-regulated issue, and I think they should be doing this stuff. That's why I'm against the town. I mean, we need so much in this town to fix our roads and things, and You know, I just think things like this should be a state issue and should be paid for and, you know, administrated by the state, even though I know it's out of my other pocket. I just don't see it as a property taxpayers having to pay for this. And that's why I so objected to this whole thing from the day that it was in, back when they started this. I remember I was sitting in the, I don't think we taped it back then. I used to come and watch the council meetings, and I remember watching a lot of this as it went through. So I just want to say personally, I think, you know, I respect anybody who puts as much heart and soul as a volunteer as you have. Nothing but respect. I just don't agree we should have to pay for it. That's all.
Thank you, Joe.
Just wanted you to know that, because.
I appreciate you saying that. I've been serving, you know, first it was on the Wastewater Management Commission, and then starting the district in 2014. Since 2007, I've been doing this for the town.
Yeah.
And yes, I have been a volunteer that entire time. And I just retired at the end of last year, so I have even more time.
Now, I want to.
My wife thinks I'm sick. But
Now, I want to follow up, and not only that, but I want to say he's a famous volunteer, because about 3 weeks ago, I was on a ski lift, and you know the conversation you have on a ski lift. Where are you from? And I said, I'm from Tiverton, Rhode Island. Do you know Leroy Kendricks? Honest to God. I just remember, honest to God.
where were you?
I was either a Wildcat or Attitash in New Hampshire. I can't remember which one, but I ride both. Anyway, you're famous too, so there you go. A little
Well,
humor.
I've been in this business for 44 years.
Yeah.
And I've lived in Tiverton for 22 years.
Yeah.
So.
It was someone you worked with. It was in the field.
Yeah,
It was a contractor that you
Yeah,
interfaced
pretty
with.
well
I can't remember the name,
known
but
in this industry.
okay. Anyway. Yep.
We pay for our water, and we have to have water to live, and it just makes so much sense to me that we would spend the money to protect the water that we're drinking. And when our water that we're drinking and swimming in is exposed to fecal bacteria, so there's poo bacteria in our water, right?
Yep.
Wow, I want to go get a bottled water. I've been here. It's an important public health issue, and it doesn't, like, to take care of it the right way, spending $10 more per household, it doesn't seem like a big number to drink healthy water.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to check off number 8 now. We see the treasurer back there, and I'd like to honor the fact that she's been diligently waiting to address some of these items. And I think a lot of these items might be relatively straightforward. I think a lot of them are just one number in the budget. And so I'd like to address these if we could. Denise, would you like to come forward and sit with Jan? I certainly don't want to gloss over the fact that you've been here for an hour. Thank you. Okay, so we are, first of all, I need a motion. I'm going to jump over the agenda. So I take a motion to take things out of order and move to agenda item number 8 to number 11, which is discussion and preliminary vote of insurance. Rogers, could I have a motion for that, please?
Also move.
A second? Second. Okay, a vote, please. Thank you. Okay, and so, number 11 is discussion and preliminary vote on insurance budgets. So, Denise, you take that away. Is this a one-line item, a number? What do we got?
Let me get my budget page.
Thank you.
Actually, page 5,
Thank
Page
you,
5.
Brendan.
2190, quite a few.
So if you look at
Oh,
it's more than one number.
sorry.
But
I was hoping it was.
And I don't have them, it's 3,303,900, which is up 2.5% from fiscal 19's approved budget. I know in the past, the budget for insurance is done pretty much on point by employee, figuring it on who's working now or full staff complement taking the insurance for both health and dental, and then there's the employer share of the HSA. So while we don't have a, it's a little late, I'm not, well, we don't have a firm increase from the trust. They were expecting it wasn't going to be as significant as it has been in past years. So at this point, I'm pretty comfortable with what the town administrator and I have put together.
Which is this, is that these numbers here?
Yes.
So the 3,303,900?
Yes, and that's health, dental, life, liability, and workman's comp.
Okay.
We actually didn't put any increase for liability or workman's comp. And I think we're going to be okay, based on what I've been told. But we, like I said, we don't get firm numbers until usually end of April.
Okay. Got a question, real high level. The police contract is changed. Does that affect this at all, or is it so small that it doesn't matter? Or
I don't
can we
think.
talk about it?
Is their first year changing?
Yes. It's a retroactive, so.
It's retroactive, so they're going to be paying an extra 500? Yeah, so it's not going to, we're not going to have a huge effect, no. So that would be about, what, 500 times 20?
Tad amount of savings.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
really, in the big picture, the $3 million number, nickels and dimes. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Considering that we're only up 2.5% for the whole category.
Right.
So if, you know.
Yeah, no, I noticed that. That's for insurance, that's kind of nice. Okay. So you're comfortable with the number, and I think it's great that we handled it as a single number. Any questions? I'll just kind of put it out there.
I mean, we don't have a choice.
No.
Right. This is the bill. We're part of a trust, right? That says
This is like debt
for this
service.
exposure,
You
this
know.
is what you have to pay.
We're-
This is your best guess.
Yeah, we're in the third year of like the life insurance, so we'll be going out again. This is going to be the fiscal year 20 will be the last year of the price we have now. So we'll be going out again for another price. And yeah, it's issued by the trust, and at this point, we don't have a choice.
Right.
And I know that, and I don't even know if I want to raise this issue, but there had been talk years ago about leaving the trust. But you would be, I think, penalized on the other end by leaving the trust. So
Okay.
I think they do a lot for us.
Questions?
Definitely get plenty from us.
True.
Okay. So we move on then. The next item on the agenda is number 12, discussion of and preliminary vote on pension plans budgets.
So that would be the same page, next group under the audit. And pretty much the police pension is the $700,000 that we put in based on the improvement plan that we're in. The employee special retirement is 2 agreements that the town made before I was born, I think. So we are contractually obligated to pay those. Fire, municipal, and the TIA, CREF, and the AFSCME, those are all based on the salaries and the percentage that the state mandates that we contribute. So it is a calculated number. And it's kind of like insurance, you know, I have to take into account if we have an open position, so I have to budget for that position being filled and, you know, paying that salary and contributing on that, to that pension fund for that person.
You remember the percentage of funding now? What were we at?
60 of the pension,
Yeah,
police?
Yeah.
68?
Oh,
68%.
I thought we were on a correction plan.
We are.
Yeah, it was worse.
It was much worse.
I thought we'd be at least to the 80 by now. Weren't we shooting for 80?
We're shooting for 80 over the next 20 years.
I must have left a zero off or something.
It takes a while.
Yeah, no, I thought we
Yeah,
were
I mean, we
I
have-
remember putting some big chunks in there. I guess I got
700. We contribute more than the recommended contribution.
Yeah.
So we're actually ahead of what they had originally projected for us at this point.
I think with the stock market and everything, we'd be doing great.
Did you do great last year? I didn't.
We did 12%
Yeah.
annually.
Yeah.
So
So I'm gonna ask, sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, different years too, though, right? Do they do it
Oh.
on a calendar year, or do they do it on?
that was fiscal year, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask,
There is a
So through
difference.
June 30th, yeah, we had a really good year.
so I'm gonna ask the question,
Almost to 70.
the $1.3 million question. So this number, Mrs. Treasurer, 1.327706. Same thing. You have confidence in that number at the same level?
We do our best.
We'll go with it? Okay, I'm just checking, because it's 3 months later and 2 months later. I'm just, this is the time for, you're here, like, this is the time to, due diligence. And, of course, we'll see it again in another week or two, but I just want to, I'm writing it down, that check, you said it tonight. Okay, are there any questions on these numbers? Okay, great, thank you. Next, wow, we're moving. Next is number 13, discussion and preliminary vote on Social Security budget.
Again, that's another calculated field where we take all of the salary-related items that we pay Social Security on and multiply.
I would think that may be something we have to pay.
And they'll come and get it if we don't pay.
Yeah, I know they will.
So,
That was a joke. Okay.
An IOU like the trust fund.
And so the 2.28%, I imagine since it runs on a percentage with that little offset, that's probably pretty much scales with the pay raises, right? It just linearly scales, right? So, yeah, okay. And that's a number I can imagine that you have a pretty good handle on as well, because the payroll. Okay. Do you anticipate any changes to this number coming in the next few weeks, or do you think this is
no,
probably
I
going to
think
stay
it's
here?
a good number.
Okay, thank you very much. Any
Unless
questions?
we were to hire a whole bunch of people at really high rates
Well,
of
the only
pay.
thing
How about,
really
would it include the, any of the new contract?
Yes.
Yeah.
We did allow for that.
It includes it now, that's great.
Great.
Okay.
The only thing that really skew
The
it
raises
is-
are included with the contingency fund number,
Yeah.
because originally the budget didn't have it by department, the increases. And in that contingency number is Social Security and pension for any potential contracts.
Well, so I guess it's just a question, will that be distributed back into these line items in a week or two when we see a budget? That's the only question.
Yeah,
We'll let you
yeah,
guys
I guess we'd have to
figure
do that, yeah.
Get you to charge up
Got to
the
do it
capital.
anyway, right? So
At some point, yeah.
Right.
Okay, great.
easy for us to say.
Questions? Okay, I'm going to write this number down, but before I do, I will go to the next item. Next item is number 14, discussion and preliminary vote on unemployment security budget. Number 14.
This is a historical guess, because we never know. We pay our own unemployment, so in the event that someone were let go and they filed for unemployment and they were granted unemployment, we pay it directly.
We're self-insured, basically, on it.
Right. So, since I've been here, we've had a few claims, you know. I don't think anything more than $15,000, $20,000 in a year. Sometimes we have none.
What do they give now, 6 weeks or something? It's really.
Oh, no, a lot more than that.
You can apply for,
No, you can't
You
get
keep
extensions with this.
applying
They're not
for
doing it like it was in 2008. I just.
if you're showing that you're, because we go through this at work too, if you're showing you're actively looking for work, and there's a whole process now, they have a form, you come in, like when they apply, you sign it. If they're showing that they're actively looking, they can get extensions for weeks on end, because I do this at my job.
Yeah, it can go on, it can go on
You
for
try it, Joe.
26 weeks or more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it depends on what the job market is as well, because they'll take that into account.
Does our unemployment system security also include the school department or just
No.
town?
No, that's just for the town.
Okay. Any questions on this number, which is $11,000 as requested? Okay, fantastic. And you said that was a voluntary thing we do, just?
Well, it's not voluntary.
I thought, what did I hear then? What did I hear when I was writing something else? We're self-insured. Oh, self-insured.
We don't participate in the state, we don't pay we don't pay unemployment insurance to the state of Rhode Island. We don't pay the federal unemployment.
Okay.
So, in the event we have an unemployment claim, we take the risk and we pay it ourselves.
Okay, and that's what?
That's what that number is.
So does this money go into restricted account?
No,
So it's not just sitting there in the building?
right. It's appropriated every year.
And if it's unused, it goes back to general fund.
Yes.
Sweeps?
Um,
Okay. Any other questions?
We might have to change that number. I just realized that.
But we probably see that in,
Yes.
if we're going to change it, we'll see it in
Yeah.
2
It was
weeks,
just
right?
this week.
Yeah.
It was
It'll
just
be
this
a,
week we
don't
got-
forget.
We just got a claim this week.
All right. Oh,
So,
okay. That's not good. Okay.
Can we deny?
Okay, next, I'll move on to the next item, which is going to be item number 15, discussion of and preliminary vote on unfunded liability - sick and vacation budget, number 15. So that is 2,300, just below the one we just did on in the budget.
this is another account similar to unemployment, and the funds are used in the event we have any retirements or any sick or vacation payouts that we have to make. Typically, police and fire are the biggest drawers on this line item, and we don't always know. Like, we just got a retirement today, not a retirement, someone's leaving today from the fire department, so they'll be calculating anything we owe him, and it'll come out of that account, you know.
So they're sick and vacation?
They're sick in vacation time. It's a contractual obligation, and it's always a guess, because one person can have a $30,000 payout.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a couple of people leave, which we've had in the past, it's exhausted in no time.
And again, this sweeps?
It goes back to the general
It
fund
sweeps.
if it's not used.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
So in 17, it was approved at 80,000, but the actual was 138.
Mm-hmm.
And then this year, we're asking for 100,000. So 2 questions. The year that it went that far over, where did the funding come from?
I don't offhand remember, but we must have had to transfer into it. And that was a year we had, I think, 3 AFSCME longtime employees left and a couple of firefighters. So we had quite a few exits that year.
And so you think we're balanced at the 100 would be, it's just a guess, but.
It's just a guess. I mean, we haven't had any payouts to date. Have we had any payouts?
I just want to share something. This has certainly been weighing on the negotiation process for the contracts. Because in particular with the fire department, there's talk of, almost a third of the fire department having applications out in other communities. And so a lot may be hanging in the balance. Right now, we're cautiously optimistic, but it's an example of how easily, things can go out of whack. And it's very hard to budget or plan for any of that. So.
With that third of that staff, 100,000 could be,
Oh, it would be gone. But that,
and really short,
That would come out
less
of
than half.
this fiscal.
We're
But that
hoping
would be
it
this-
won't
This
get that
fiscal
far,
year,
but
right?
it would, I'm
Depends how much
guessing it
leave
would be
they
this
got.
fiscal year because it would be for the, before the contract were.
Oh, can I ask a question? So you said something about 30,000. What was that about, Denise?
A single
Yes.
person can have a payout up to
So
$30,000.
one employee could whack up $30,000 in sick and vacation time in a year?
It's not in a year.
Over the course, okay, thank you, that's right, I was thinking, okay,
Over
thank
the
you.
course of their.
Yeah.
If that's
Yeah.
the case, where do I apply?
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Well, 30,000 would be like
20-year
how many
employee.
years approximately? That would be a long time. Because we have firefighters who are usually here, if they come and they leave quickly, like we've talked about, it could be 2, 3 years, 4, 5 years.
Right, I'm talking about the long-time people.
Yeah,
20
yeah,
years,
okay,
$1,500
thank
a
you.
year,
Puts it in
yeah.
perspective, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, are there any, right now they're estimating, I mean, they said it's an estimate, it's a WAG, probably, but probably somewhat educated too, based on, well, who knows? With a third of the applications out, but $100,000 is where it's at. So are there any questions on that number? Any further questions?
We don't do buybacks at the end of the year anymore with police and fire?
We do buybacks with the police up to, I think, 10 days. Fire, no buybacks.
Okay.
DPW, there's buybacks.
There's
So
buybacks.
usually when those folks leave, it's not as
Yeah.
high, but some of the police don't buy back their time.
We had a clerk leave one time, what did she have, 6 months or something like that? She had accrued, because she did zoning board meetings and stuff.
That was
But
before my
fortunately, she
time.
worked with the town and just took like 3 days off a week until she retired or something, so. It gets bad if they don't watch it.
Okay. So, any other questions on this?
So when Nancy Mello announced his retirement, we need to fund that.
Gotta need more than 100 grand.
She
Pretty
won't
much.
have anything. The department heads don't
Oh,
get
yeah,
anything.
that's right, she is department head.
Phew.
Okay.
Just any accrued vacation time that they might not have taken that year that they are due, but no sick time is.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's
That was
great to
great.
just have gone through those numbers, and we did it in 18
Record
minutes, or whatever
time.
it was. So that was really good to knock those out.
And thank
They've
you
been
for waiting.
lingering in the back of my mind.
5 minutes.
What's that?
5 million in 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, that works. So I want to, I still want to cover the last 2 items, but thank you very much.
I
And,
just have a comment about the wastewater situation.
oh, yeah,
Is it okay if I say something?
sure. We won't make
Some-
you go to the podium either. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I grew up in South Tiverton, so, well, I didn't grow up in South Tiverton, North and South Tiverton, but I grew up mostly in South Tiverton. Well, septic, always had a concern about Nonquit Pond, because the town doesn't own that water. So if that water were contaminated, the city of Newport owns that water, and it's their water source.
Right, they test it all the time.
I know, but I'm just, well, you know, I personally know a family whose well was contaminated by a neighboring cesspool on Neck Road.
When?
3 years ago?
Yeah, they got shallow wells out there.
Oh, it's a 250-foot deep
Really?
well.
Oh. Really?
Yes. Yes. So
If you get a second
That
There's a
means
say-
it went to the pipe and went
There-
down.
There's a
That's why-
saying in South
could.
Tiverton, you drink what you flush. So,
That's pretty bad.
I've never heard that, and I live down there, and I also have a lot of
Yeah, I never
testing
heard
done and never found those results. So I don't know, maybe it's just an odd case, I don't know. Thank you for that.
Okay.
They found pesticides.
Thank you for
in
those
well.
words.
Thanks for that.
I'll be heading to North Tiverton for my water.
Yeah,
Thank you. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I want to wrap this up, but I do have to cover a little bit of business. I'm going to take number 9 and number 10. We just cannot kill those two. So I'm going to, but we'll get through them. I'll talk about them. There's just a couple little nits in number 9 and 10 we'll deal with. Nevertheless, I'll put those on the agenda at some point here in the near future. And so approval of minutes, number 16. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from February 21, 2019.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
So motion by Jen,
Joe.
Jocelyn, and second by Joe. Okay, so discussion, any discussion?
I read through them.
10 o'clock already.
I didn't find anything.
All time flies.
Okay, well, I'll take a vote then. So I'm not going to vote because I wasn't there, but all those in favor?
And you're abstaining? He's abstaining.
Opposed?
Yep.
Okay, and I abstained, and it looks like Joe abstained.
No,
Oh,
I was in affirmative.
oh, you were affirmative, okay.
Just
So I did not vote. Okay, Tom, thank you.
Got it.
All right, great. So, that's item number 16 on the agenda, item number 17 on the agenda. Approval of minutes from February 23rd, 2019. This would be I guess, the site visit, right, last weekend? So I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes from February 23rd.
I'll move.
Second?
So just question, not everyone went to town hall. So we went to the library and then not everybody came here.
Ah.
Aha.
Well, do you have to break it down be that nitpicky about it?
Who was missing?
Well,
I don't think so.
I haven't read them because I didn't go, so let me see.
Well, like, when we went to the high school and the middle school, I went to one and not the other, and I still voted.
It's just a minute.
Right, I don't
Yeah.
think
Yeah, I
it's,
mean,
It was
equivalent
just-
of leaving a meeting early, you'd still
Yeah.
vote, you know.
Yeah, so-
yeah, I don't think it's a big deal.
It's just the minutes.
Here.
Yeah, it's just a minute.
Did everybody come?
No,
Yeah.
we all did, yeah.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of who's not here. Yeah, I think we, no.
I think
We lost someone.
No.
Okay.
I think I talked to Sherry downstairs.
Not the girl, that's-
So we had a motion by Brendan, a second by Joe. We just had a little bit of discussion. Any more? Are we all set? Okay, I'll take a vote on that. All those in favor? Opposed? Nobody. So, and I abstain again because I was not there. Okay, fantastic. Next item is administrative items. I want to briefly share that we're on 28 now, so let me look here. I think that next week, oh, wait, site visit. Site visit. First of all, we have a site visit. Oh, I want to thank Jennifer Jocelyn for putting this site visit together in terms of helping with the selection of the places this weekend. I remember that she was very engaged in that discussion and whatnot, and so the 3 places that are selected, she helped me pick. So, and they are starting at Town Farm, and then moving to, help me, Jen? Pecasset, and then moving to
Bayview, and.
Bayview.
Bayview, because it came up on the list, I didn't even know it existed, but I guess the equipment there is very, very old.
Okay.
And people are using it, so I
Yep.
thought it would be worth it, I don't know if there'll be any funding for it.
Kind of used as a
And
dog
it's part
park
of, it's part of
mostly.
the Bay Street
Issue.
issue.
Okay. So thank you again for that, and that's where it is. If anybody wants to join that, again, the phone numbers are on there to call if you come after time. That is that. Next week, I'm looking at for next week's meeting, which is 7 March, I'm looking at right now a list, and I don't know if it's totally accurate because this is in my scratch sheet in Excel, but I see beaches, summer recreation, town council, legal services, planning board, and then I have touch base again with school. And so I tried to get the school to come. I tried to set up something for tomorrow morning, or Saturday morning, or for Monday night, but it didn't work out. So I think what I have is an email from Jerry Larkin, the chair of the school committee, who did say that he could grab the superintendent and bring him along and anybody else who was available and come on the 7th to answer questions. So probably at this point, that's the most efficient thing we're going to do. So I think we'll definitely take him up on that, and I said I'd bring that to the table tonight, okay? So next week is a busy week, but we are going to we're gonna have to come with our ducks in order to fit all that in, but we will. Now. So Saturday we went through, next week we went through. This will be the last site visit, in theory. And that's kind of where we're at. And so we can talk about the possibility, if we feel it necessary, to maybe add a meeting on the 12th of March. We'll see where we're at, maybe with the school, or I don't quite know. The 7th of March is Thursday. Can someone help me? Can an agenda be posted? Is it too tight, or could an agenda be posted on Friday for a Tuesday meeting? School committee people would know that. Can it be done or no?
48 hours, not including.
48 hours.
Yeah, so.
Weekends don't
So it'll
count,
have to
right?
be posted.
Yeah, not including the weekend.
So a Friday night
It would have to be posted before.
Posted before
7 p.m.
on a Friday.
Yeah.
So that works. So in theory, we could decide to do something on a Tuesday if we wanted. Let's just say if we just felt pressed, or if we needed to, we could decide to, and then I would have Friday to make it happen, is what I'm getting at. So
Right.
it's not, I didn't know if I had the time. Okay. And there's no holiday there, so I don't have to worry about that. Okay, so we could potentially do that. So I'm just mentioning it now. I just have it kind of there. We'll talk about that. I got to do a little more mapping. But for now, next week's a busy week. That's sort of what I have on the map there. And we've got this boards and commissions gnats to deal with. And I think that, is there anything else? Did I have more closing
Can I
remarks?
ask a question? On the boards and commissions and civic appropriations, can you just give on the agenda, can you just
Yes.
say the detailed level that we missed,
Well,
whatever we did, whatever it was that we missed?
I'd rather than do that, I'd rather say it right now. I can do it right now because I have access. On the boards and commissions, what we need to cover, and these are really simple. Recycling committee, it's $150. We just need to properly do it, okay? Personnel board, $500, properly do it. Budget committee, $500, properly do it. So that's straightforward, just boom, boom, boom. Okay, and then civic appropriations, we covered the wildlife one that came, and there's a whole bunch here that I've asked Jan to speak to, okay? I've asked Jan to speak to these, so, and so that, we just got to go through those, and again, with a total of 17 grand, and, I don't think that I think that we can do that. But we do have to give it the right time, but I don't think we need to, have a whole meeting for that. So I can remember back in the days when I was a freshman in 2000, whatever, we did those in about 8 minutes. So, I don't think we need to do that either, but hopefully we can move through those.
Yeah.
Okay?
Jeff, one of the things that we did 2 years ago, we didn't do it last year, was had someone come in and talk about the results from the audit. And where we ended up in the year.
Oh.
Last year, that was the thing that ended up with discrepancy in the perceived in the school's fund balance, but it's sort of where we ended up in June 30th, 2018. And I believe it was Shahadi, the accounting firm, had come in, and Denise, I think, sat with her. So I don't want to, it's not as much pressing, and certainly we don't vote on it or something, but it was a real helpful way of getting some sense of how do things end up in the year. I mean, we're
And
in
where
the.
we are for general fund balance.
she's not
Correct,
doing it.
yep,
bottom line.
yep.
Yeah, where's the school at with
Page
numbers, yeah.
2, that was a long one, like, that was probably.
What's that?
If I'm remembering that presentation correctly, that was like a big chunk of time. So if we're gonna do that, I think we're gonna need to allot for it, because I wanna say it was like a good.
Close to a whole meeting.
Close to a whole meeting just for that.
Well,
So that's,
yeah.
I mean, obviously,
Last year,
talking about.
it degenerated
But
very quickly because the auditor came in, and I don't know why she did it, but
Schools right off the bat.
she went off the rails.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I don't,
And we had this huge discussion.
right, I don't think that it's true that she went off the rails. She's paid to identify any issues that she sees, and that's all she said.
Right, but
Yeah,
she,
yeah.
but the, part of the issue too is that she didn't go over the rest of the audit.
No.
We spent a whole meeting about the schools, there wasn't a big highlight on the
Okay.
rest of the audit. So, just so if we're gonna do that, we allot the appropriate amount of time for that.
Okay.
The auditor,
And this year, you know, we've had our full explanation about that subject
Yes.
that
So,
generated
yeah.
that.
Okay. I made a note of that, let me work on scheduling.
I wouldn't pounce anything out for it, but I did find it helpful, so if that can fit in,
No,
that would
that's
be
good, I'm
great.
glad you mentioned it, because I wasn't here for that, so. Okay.
Wait, Jeff,
Um,
are you saying that you're going to tell her,
I'm not gonna do anything with there until I get the schedule
Okay.
and get a warm fuzzy that we can fit it in.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah, so, but, I wanna get through, what we gotta get through first. So, now, it's my understanding that the, town council has to get some materials that they approve to the town administrator sometime early next week. And 10 days, within 10 days after that, he flips it to us. So, anyway, that's supposed to happen. That's all I'm gonna start clicking here pretty quick. So, I'm trying to use these days we have, in theory, we're wrapping down here, and then once we get those materials, we're in the critical path here. So, I'm trying to use these last sessions so that we've got as much done as we can, obviously.
you're doing a
Yep.
great job.
Well,
Yep,
thank you,
thank
I'm
you.
trying.
Yep.
Okay, so with that, if I think of something, I'm sure I have forgotten something, I'm getting sick again, you can tell. If I've forgotten something, I will have Sherry, I'll send a note to Sherry and just have her blast it out to everybody if I've forgotten something, but, I think we covered it for now, and I think that's that. And next meeting, we want to come in, and we have a lot to do. Because we're potentially gonna have the council here for a brief time, the school here, and recreation, really, they've been on the list for this night, for that night, so. Okay, thank you. So with that, I think that covers closing remarks as well, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that.
Second.
quick on the side.
I'll vote.
I disagree.